The first lie Nolan told the court was almost tender. My wife's service changed her, he said, looking down as if the right words might be hiding in his lap. I don't blame her. I want that understood. But there were times I didn't feel safe. Ex-wife, I thought. My attorney, Denise Carver, put 2 fingers on my wrist, not to comfort me, to remind me that Nolan's attorney could see my hands. Then they played the recording. My voice came through the courtroom speakers, thin and metallic. I don't sleep. I check every door twice. Sometimes I hear things that aren't there. A crash followed. Nolan's attorney let the silence sit long enough to become evidence. Then my voice again, keep pushing me and you'll find out what I'm capable of. Behind Nolan, my mother stared at the floor. His attorney stopped the recording after 47 seconds. That isn't the whole conversation, I told Denise. I know, no. I mean, he cut the sentences. Denise looked toward the judge, then back at me. Are you certain? I could see Nolan warning me with his face. Not threatening, warning. The expression he had used for years when he wanted other people to believe I was one hard breath away from becoming unreasonable. I stood. Your Honor, I'd like him to play the whole recording. Nolan finally looked afraid. 6 months earlier, I'd been standing in my basement with a furnace filter under one arm when I learned my family had held a dinner in memory of my father and forgotten to invite me. That was how Theo phrased it anyway. You know how families are, he said. I do. That's why I'm asking whether they forgot me on purpose. Theo was 34, my cousin on my father's side, and built like a man who had spent his life lifting furniture rather than discussing it. He rented my garage for his restoration work, although rented was generous. He gave me cash when he remembered and fixed things I had not asked him to touch. We considered that an economic system. He stood on the bottom basement step holding a glass baking dish covered with foil. Nolan said you weren't up for it. Up for what? Theo's face changed. Theo could bluff a customer about walnut veneer while standing beside a roll of walnut veneer. With family, he had the deception skills of a porch light. He looked down at the dish. This is sweet potato casserole. I can see that. Your mom sent it. Why? Because there was a lot left. I slid the filter into place, shut the metal panel, and wiped my hands on my jeans. The furnace kicked on with a clunk that had been annoying Nolan since October and didn't bother me at all. When was this dinner? Last night. Yesterday had been 4 years since my father died. I looked at Theo. He looked at the casserole. Who was there? Mara. That isn't a complicated question. Your mom, Nolan, Paige, me. Denise and Carl from next door came by for dessert. Denise and Carl knew my father for 11 months. They brought a pineapple upside-down cake. Well, that changes everything. Theo pressed his lips together. I went up the stairs. He followed me into the kitchen, still carrying the casserole like it might shield him from incoming fire. The house was a red brick split level that looked sensible from the street and had been modified by people who distrusted blueprints. My father and I had opened the kitchen into the dining room during one of my leaves, but he had refused to remove a support post because he was convinced the second floor would fall into the refrigerator. The post remained. So did the refrigerator. Above the sink hung 4 mugs. One was mine, one was Nolan's, one had Paige's favorite sister printed on it even though Paige was my only sister, and one was a thick brown ceramic mug my father had used every morning for 27 years. He claimed coffee tasted better in it. The inside looked like a geological survey. Theo set the casserole on the counter beneath those mugs. I thought you knew, he said. I didn't. Nolan said you didn't want anybody calling. Did he say why? Theo scratched the back of his neck. He said the date still messes with you. The date did mess with me. It made me wake up remembering the last voicemail my father left, complaining that the hospital coffee could legally be used to remove paint. It made me think about the flight I couldn't get and the last 18 hours I missed. It did not make me incapable of eating roast chicken with my mother. Did anyone ask him where I was? Paige did. And? He said you'd gone for a drive. I was here. He said maybe you had gone earlier. I worked in the garage until 8. You were in there with me. I know that now. You knew it then. Theo's shoulders lowered an inch. I didn't put it together. That was the kind of phrase people used when they had put something together and disliked the picture. I opened the refrigerator. Nolan had arranged the drinks by height, something he did whenever he was anxious but would deny under oath. There was half a bottle of iced tea, sparkling water I hated, and 3 containers of leftovers labeled in his neat handwriting. My father's anniversary dinner was stacked between mustard and a bag of carrots, roast chicken, green beans, for Mara. I shut the door. Did he make the labels before or after he told everybody I couldn't handle being there? I don't know. That was rhetorical. Good, because I don't know. I glanced at him. You're really bringing a lot to this investigation. I brought casserole. Despite myself, I laughed. One short sound, but Theo took it as permission to breathe. I'm sorry, he said. The apology bothered me more than the excuse. Theo had nothing to apologize for except believing my husband. I picked up my phone. You calling Paige? My mother? You want me to stay? No. That sounded fast. I don't need backup to make a phone call. I didn't say backup. I said stay. There was the thing I did. Nolan called it turning every offer into a challenge. My father had called it being a pain in the ass. The Army had promoted me for it twice. I set the phone down instead of dialing. Theo nodded once, accepting the correction I hadn't spoken. I'll be in the garage, he said, if you need anything. I won't. I know. He left the casserole. My mother answered on the 5th ring with television noise behind her. Hi, sweetheart. She sounded careful. That was my first confirmation that the dinner had not been an oversight. Did you have people over last night? Silence. Then the television went quiet. Just a few. For Dad. Yes. Why wasn't I invited? Mara. One word carrying a whole bucket of blame. I'm asking a question. Nolan said you wanted to spend the day quietly. Nolan didn't ask me. He said you two had discussed it. We didn't. Well, maybe he misunderstood. He told Theo I wasn't up for it. He told Paige I went for a drive. He told you I wanted to be alone. Those are 3 different misunderstandings. My mother exhaled. I wish you wouldn't interrogate me. I asked why I wasn't invited to my father's anniversary dinner. You know that date puts you in a state. A state, not grief, not sadness. A state as though Virginia might issue a weather advisory. What state was I in last year? Mara, don't. No, I'd like to know. You left early. I left after 3 hours because Nolan said you were tired. He said you were tired? The silence after that was different. In the Army, when 2 people gave incompatible accounts, you did not immediately decide which person was lying. Memory was faulty. Noise confused sequence. Fear made witnesses certain of things that never happened, but confusion had a shape. This had Nolan's handwriting on it. My mother lowered her voice. He worries about you. He excluded me from Dad's dinner. He was trying to spare you. From what? From getting overwhelmed. I looked through the kitchen window at the detached garage. Theo had switched on the overhead lights. His shadow moved behind the frosted glass. I spent 19 years being trusted around spinning blades and aviation fuel, I said. I can survive green beans with my sister. That's exactly what I mean. You always make it about your service. I didn't make it about my service. You made it about my stability. I am not going to fight with you. I'm not fighting. You don't hear your tone. There it was. Not what I had said. The way I said it. I softened my voice until I sounded like a receptionist confirming a dental appointment. Mom, did you want me there? Another pause. Yes. That hurt more than no would've. Then why didn't you call? I thought you'd made your choice. I didn't know there was a choice. Nolan said. I know what Nolan said. My mother went quiet. On her end, a cabinet opened and closed. There's cake left, she said. The pineapple one was actually very good. I'm sure it was. You could come by tomorrow. My father's death had become leftovers. I'll call you later. You always say that when you're upset. I am upset. You see? This is what I was afraid of. I hung up before I gave her something else to diagnose. For 10 minutes, I stood in the kitchen and did nothing useful. That was unusual enough that I noticed. Then I started checking. Not because I distrusted Nolan, I told myself, because facts were kinder than imagination. My calendar showed no anniversary dinner. The shared calendar showed nothing either. I searched my messages with my mother. A week earlier, she had asked if I still had Dad's old gravy boat. I'd answered that it was in the dining room cabinet. At the time, I assumed she was inventorying family possessions, one of her less charming hobbies. Paige had texted me the day before. Thinking of you. Love you. I had responded with a heart. At 7:43, while everyone else was eating in my mother's dining room, Nolan had texted, "Going to help Evelyn with her porch light. Don't wait up." I sat at the kitchen table and read that sentence 5 times. The porch light had been working since August. I knew because I had replaced it. Nolan came home at 4:20 carrying my mother's aluminum stepladder on one shoulder and a paper bag from the hardware store. He had always been handsome in a way that invited trust. Soft brown hair going gray at the temples, hazel eyes, the patient mouth of a man prepared to let you finish. When we met, I mistook patience for passivity. It wasn't. Nolan could wait longer than anyone I knew for a room to come around to his version of events. He set the ladder by the back door. "Theo left his truck crooked again," he said. "One day that man's going to block the mail carrier and trigger a federal incident." I was at the counter with the casserole between us. Nolan saw it. Only his left hand moved. His thumb rubbed once across the side of his index finger. "Mom called," I said. His expression softened before I told him why. "Everything okay? Why wasn't I invited last night?" He put the hardware bag down. "I thought we agreed you didn't want to do a whole thing this year. We never discussed it. We did. In bed. You said you didn't want everybody watching you. I said I didn't want everybody watching me open Dad's tool chest. That was part of the dinner. I didn't know there was a dinner." He leaned against the counter. Okay. It was a useful word for Nolan. It sounded like surrender while granting nothing. "Why did you tell my mother I wanted to be alone?" "Because you did." "Why did you tell Paige I went for a drive?" "I don't remember saying that." "Why did you tell Theo I wasn't up for it?" "Mara, I was trying to give you space. In my own family?" His eyes sharpened, then went gentle again. "You're escalating." I looked at the casserole. Sweet potatoes, brown sugar, miniature marshmallows lined up across the top. My mother had been making it since before I could remember. She had sent it home with my husband after deciding I was too unstable to sit at her table. I'm standing in my kitchen asking what you told people about me, and I'm answering. No, you're naming my reaction so you don't have to answer. Nolan glanced toward the basement door, the hallway, the garage window, checking who might hear. Then he lowered his voice. "Do you really want to know why everyone believed me?" I didn't move. He gave me a tired, almost sorrowful smile. "Maybe that's the question you should be asking." The question had an answer. I just didn't want to hand it to him. "People believed you because you're good at sounding reasonable," I said. Nolan's smile disappeared. That's insulting. It wasn't meant as a compliment. He picked up the hardware bag and began removing its contents. 2 light bulbs, a pack of picture hooks, a roll of electrical tape. Ordinary objects arranged carefully between us. "You think I tricked your entire family? I think you told them I couldn't handle a dinner and nobody called me to check, because they've seen you not handle things." The furnace clunked below us. Nolan glanced toward the floor. "What things? Come on, Mara. No, you open this door." His jaw shifted. "After Germany, you went 4 days without sleeping. 8 years ago. You checked the windows every night. I was getting treatment. You kept a wrench under your side of the bed. For 3 weeks. I reached for you once and you almost broke my wrist." That was true. I had come awake with my hand locked around his arm, my body acting before my mind caught up. The room had been dark. Nolan had said my name twice before I let him go. He hadn't yelled. He hadn't even pulled away. He had sat beside me until my breathing slowed, then gone downstairs and brought back a bag of frozen peas for his wrist. The next morning, he drove me to an appointment I had been planning to cancel. There had been good in him. That was what made the rest of it difficult to measure. I apologized, I said. I got help. You told me you forgave me. This isn't about forgiveness. Then why are you using it now? Because you're acting like everyone's concern came out of nowhere. My mother held a memorial dinner for my father and didn't invite me. And you're interrogating everyone because of it. I called one person. You questioned Theo. He walked into my basement carrying evidence. Nolan gave a short laugh despite himself. Sweet potato casserole is evidence now? It has motive. For half a second, we were us again. The version that could break tension with one stupid line and find our way back to each other. Then he looked at the casserole and said, "You always do that." Do what? Make a joke so you don't have to admit something hurt you. It hurt me. He blinked. I had surprised him. That bothered me. It hurt me that nobody wanted me there, I said. It hurt worse that they thought not wanting me there was kindness. No one said they didn't want you. They let you speak for me. Because when they ask you directly, you make everything difficult. I looked at him. Nolan rubbed both hands over his face. That came out wrong. No, I think that came out exactly right. He reached for the iced tea, then remembered it was in the refrigerator and stopped with his hand in the air. He hated being caught without the next move ready. "I didn't exclude you to punish you," he said. "I thought you'd be more comfortable here. You thought I'd be easier to manage here. That isn't fair. Neither was eating my father's anniversary dinner without me." He went still. "It wasn't your dinner, Mara." He said it quietly. If he had shouted, I might have shouted back. Instead, I felt something precise slide into place. What does that mean? It was Evelyn's dinner, at Evelyn's house, for her husband. He was my father. I know that. Do you? Nolan put both palms on the counter. Your mother has spent 4 years trying to grieve, while also worrying about how you'll react to every mention of him. Paige does it too. Everybody does. No, everybody worries about how you'll describe my reaction afterward. That's paranoid. There it was, a diagnosis disguised as an adjective. I picked up the casserole. Where are you going? Garage. To tell Theo what a monster I am. To put this in his refrigerator. I don't want it. Mara, stop. I stopped at the back door. What? His face softened again. He came around the counter but left several feet between us. Nolan knew exactly how far away to stand when he wanted to demonstrate that he was not crowding me. "I'm sorry," he said. "I should have talked to you before the dinner." "Yes. I made the wrong call." "You made 3 different calls depending on who you were talking to. I was trying to prevent drama. You created it." He nodded once, slowly, as if agreeing with a volatile customer. "Okay. That okay again." I opened the door. Behind me, he said, "You're not the only one who lived through those years." My hand tightened around the baking dish. I kept walking. Theo had a walnut sideboard laid on its back across 2 padded sawhorses. Its drawers were stacked on the workbench my father built, each one numbered in blue painter's tape. The garage smelled like mineral spirits, sawdust, and the cinnamon gum Theo chewed to cover the cigarettes he claimed he had quit. He looked up when I entered. That was fast. I held out the casserole. "Your retainer." He took it. "Is this a bribe or hush money?" "Yes." He opened the refrigerator beside his sanding cabinet and moved 3 bottles of root beer to make room. "You okay?" "I'm trying to decide." "About what?" "If I'm okay." That sounds like a trap. It isn't. All right. He shut the refrigerator. "Then you seem mad. Do I seem unstable?" Theo leaned one hip against the bench. "Those aren't the same thing." "Nolan thinks they are. Nolan thinks putting paprika on deviled eggs is adventurous. Don't evade." "I'm not." He folded his arms. "You want an honest answer? I rarely ask for anything else. You ask for accurate answers. That's not always the same. My father had liked Theo for that exact reason. He could spend 90% of his life avoiding conflict, then drop one sentence into the middle of a room and leave everyone else to clean up. Fine, I said. Give me the inaccurate, honest answer. You can be intense. So can a table saw. See that? You always answer like we're in a contest and you know where the finish line is. I don't know what that means. It means if I say you hurt my feelings, you'll ask me for the date and time. That would help. It would help you. I stared at him. Theo lifted both hands. You asked. I sat on the rolling shop stool, one wheel caught in a crack in the concrete, turning my attempted sit into a small sideways collapse. Theo looked away with heroic speed. You can laugh, I said. I didn't see anything. You're a terrible witness. Family trait. He tore off a piece of painter's tape and stuck it to the sideboard. I don't think you're unstable, he said. I think you decide what you can handle before anybody gets a chance to offer help. Then you get mad when they assume you don't need them. That has nothing to do with last night. No, last night was lousy. Thank you. But people are used to going through Nolan. That landed where I had been trying not to look. Why? He answers. So do I. He answers like you want the answer to feel. What does that even mean? If Evelyn calls you and says her sink is leaking, you tell her how to shut off the valve and ask for a picture of the pipe. Nolan says, "Oh no, that sounds awful," and drives over. The valve needs to be shut off. Sure. Otherwise the cabinet floods. I know. So I'm right. Theo smiled without humor. You're almost always right, Mara. It's exhausting. I picked at a strip of dried glue on my thumb. Did my father think that? Your father thought everybody was wrong except him. That's not an answer. He missed you. I waited. Theo looked down at the sideboard. Sometimes he was mad that you weren't here. I was deployed. I know. He knew. I know. Then what was I supposed to do with that? Nothing. Probably. People get to feel two things. The garage door rattled in its track as wind pushed against it. On the far wall, my father's old pegboard held chisels, clamps, 2 hand saws, and a framing square. Theo refused to use because it was too mean-looking. Everything had a place. That had always made sense to me. People kept changing shape when I wasn't looking. Did Nolan tell him I was worse than I was? Theo hesitated too long. What did he say? Not much. Theo, he'd say you were having a rough day, or you hadn't slept. Sometimes he'd ask us not to call because you were finally resting. How often? I don't know. You don't know or you don't want to say? Both. I stood. Theo stepped closer, not blocking me, just making sure I saw him. Don't go in there and start counting every conversation you missed, he said. You'll drive yourself crazy. Interesting choice of phrase. Damn it, Mara. I regretted it immediately. Theo's mouth tightened. He turned back to the sideboard and picked up a scraper. I'm sorry, I said. He kept working. Theo. What? I'm sorry. He scraped a thin curl of old finish from the wood. Okay. His okay sounded nothing like Nolan's, which made me wonder how many ordinary words had been ruined without my noticing. I returned to the house through the side door. Nolan was washing the casserole's serving spoon even though I had taken the casserole away. He washed dishes when he wanted credit for remaining calm. I'm going to call Paige, I said. He shut off the water. Why? To ask what you told her. I don't remember every conversation I've ever had with your sister. I'm not asking you to. She's had a hard week. You know what? I'll let Paige decide what Paige can handle. Nolan dried the spoon carefully. This is what I meant about interrogating people. You don't get to keep using that word. I'm trying to warn you. About what? What happens when you force people to take sides? I took out my phone. Paige answered immediately. Hey, she said, you okay? Nolan turned his back and opened the cabinet where we kept the serving utensils. Did Nolan tell you I went for a drive last night? A long pause. He said you needed space. Did you ask me? I texted you. You wrote, thinking of you. I thought you knew what I meant. I thought you were acknowledging the anniversary. I was. from a dinner I didn't know was happening. Nolan put the spoon into the drawer, then took it back out because he had placed it in the wrong slot. Paige sighed. Can we not do this? Do what? Turn it into a whole tribunal. Nolan's shoulders dropped slightly. Same language, different mouth. I'm asking why my family held a dinner for Dad without me. Because last year was awful. I left because Nolan said Mom was tired. Mom wasn't tired. I know that now. You barely spoke to anybody. I spent an hour fixing her garbage disposal. That's exactly it. What is? You fixed the disposal. It was broken. Paige made a sound halfway between a laugh and a groan. You came over on the anniversary of Dad's death, crawled under the sink, ate standing up, and left without hugging Mom. I remembered the disposal. I remembered grease on my sleeve and Nolan bringing me a flashlight. I did not remember my mother waiting for a hug. Why didn't she ask me to stay? Why did she have to? The question stopped me. Nolan stood by the drawer holding the clean spoon. Paige lowered her voice. I'm not saying last night was right. I'm saying you make it hard to know when you want to be included. I always want to be asked. Then say that. I am. 4 years late. She hung up. I lowered the phone. Nolan put the spoon away. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then he filled the kettle and set it on the stove. He took down the blue tin of tea I used when my stomach hurt, measured the leaves into the little mesh basket, and warmed my cup with hot tap water while he waited for the kettle. He knew exactly how I liked it. He knew I would forget to eat when I was angry. He knew the anniversary made my stomach hurt even when I said it didn't. That knowledge had once felt like love. He set the cup near me, far enough from the counter's edge that I couldn't knock it off with my elbow. I wasn't trying to erase you, he said. I watched the steam rise. What were you trying to do? Keep everyone from having another miserable night? By lying? By making a judgment call? You're not my commanding officer. His face changed. No, he said. I'm the person who was here afterward. I left the tea untouched. What else have you told them I couldn't handle? He looked toward my father's brown mug hanging above the sink. Then he reached up, took it from its hook, and poured himself coffee into it. More than you want to know, he said. Put it back. Nolan looked at the mug, then at me. It's a cup. Then use yours. Mine's in the dishwasher. It's hanging beside the sink. He glanced over his shoulder. His white mug with the black rim hung exactly where it had hung for 6 years. I didn't see it. Yes, you did. He took a sip from my father's mug. It was such a small, stupid act that reacting to it would prove whatever he wanted proven. Nolan knew that. I knew he knew it. We had reached the point where both of us could see the machinery and neither of us would stop turning the crank. You don't own everything that belonged to him, Nolan said. I didn't say I did. You act like I was a stranger. I asked you not to drink from his mug. He and I had coffee together every Sunday for 2 years while you were in Germany. There are facts that arrive late enough to feel like accusations. My father had never mentioned Sunday coffee. He had told me about the neighbor's fence, his blood pressure, a hawk nesting near the interstate, and a waitress at the diner who could identify farm equipment by sound. Not Nolan. You never told me that, I said. Why would I have to? You tell me when the grocery store moves the yogurt. That's not the same thing. No, it isn't. He held the mug with both hands now. Possessive or protective, I couldn't tell. Your father called me when he couldn't sleep, he said. I took him to appointments he didn't want you worrying about. I sat with him in that hospital for 18 hours. I know. Do you? The words landed harder because they were mine. Nolan's eyes were wet, which made me angrier and ashamed of being angry. I was trying to get home. I know you were. There were no seats. I know. I called every number they gave me. I know, Mara. You told me he wasn't alone. He wasn't. The refrigerator motor came on behind me. Nolan looked down into the coffee. He asked for you until they gave him something to help him rest. I gripped the edge of the counter. You said he was peaceful. He was, at the end. That isn't what you said. You were in an airport in Frankfurt. What was I supposed to tell you? The truth. You would have torn yourself apart. You don't get to make that decision. I already made it. 4 years had passed, and somehow the room where my father died had just changed shape. I could see Nolan there in the vinyl chair, holding my father's hand. I could also see him looking at his phone, choosing which version of the night I could survive. Maybe the choice had been loving. Maybe that was how it started. "When did you stop telling me the truth?" I asked. He lifted his head. "I have never lied to you about anything that mattered. Last night mattered." I apologized. "No. You said you made a judgment call. Fine. I'm sorry you weren't at the dinner. That's not an apology. It's the one I have." He finished the coffee, rinsed the mug, and reached toward its hook. "Dry it first," I said. He closed his eyes. "My father never put it away wet." Nolan took a dish towel from the oven handle. He dried the mug, including the bottom, and hung it back beside mine. "I'm going to bed," he said. "It's 5 in the afternoon. I'm tired. Apparently, I'm contagious." He stared at me. I wished the sentence back, not because it was crueler than anything he had said, but because it gave him what he kept claiming to see. "Forget it," I said. "That's your apology?" "It's the one I have." He nodded. Then he went upstairs. I stayed in the kitchen until the tea he had made me was cold. The house had never been quiet. Pipes clicked, the refrigerator hummed. The maple outside scraped one branch along the gutter whenever the wind came from the north. Nolan had offered to cut that branch every spring, and every spring I told him it wasn't hurting anything. That evening, it sounded like someone trying to get in. I checked the back door once. Then, angry that I had noticed checking it, I walked away without checking the front. Nolan slept in our bed. I took the downstairs sofa, which was 6 inches too short and upholstered in a fabric that held every crumb ever produced in Virginia. At 1 in the morning, I found a pretzel under my hip. We hadn't bought pretzels in months. I held it up in the dark. "Good security," I whispered. "Terrible housekeeping. I didn't sleep much." At 6, Nolan came downstairs in pressed slacks and a blue shirt. He worked for a medical supply company in Richmond, coordinating sales territories and solving disputes between people who used phrases like client-facing alignment. He could make a delayed shipment sound like a personal tragedy. He stopped when he saw me on the sofa. "You should have taken the bed. I did for 15 years. Mara, you said I make jokes to avoid admitting I'm hurt. I shouldn't have said that." "Why?" "It's true." He sat in the armchair across from me. The coffee table between us held my folded blanket, a water glass, and the uneaten pretzel. "I'm going to stay with your mother for a few nights," he said. I sat up. "No." His eyebrows rose. "You don't want me here. I don't want you taking our marriage to my mother's guest room. I'm not taking anything anywhere. You know what I mean?" She offered. "You already called her?" "She called me." "When?" "Last night, after I spoke to her." "Yes. What did you tell her?" "The truth." I laughed. His face hardened. "I told her we argued and needed some space. Did you tell her what we argued about?" "She knew. Did you tell her you excluded me from the dinner?" "I told her you were upset about the dinner." "That's not the same sentence. I'm not doing this again." He stood. "Then stay with someone else." "Who?" "I don't care." "Right. As long as it isn't anyone you might have to talk to later." "That's not what I said. You don't want me at Evelyn's because you don't want her hearing my side. She's been hearing your side for years." Nolan looked toward the kitchen. I followed his gaze. My father's mug hung where he had returned it, brown and dull in the morning light. "I was part of this family while you were gone," he said. "You were my husband while I was gone. I was both. Then why do I feel like I came home and found out you'd replaced me?" His mouth opened, but nothing came out. That was the closest I had come to the actual wound, and we both knew it. I stood, wrapped the blanket around myself, and went into the kitchen. Nolan followed. "You weren't replaced. My mother calls you before she calls me." Paige repeats your words back to me like they're hers. Theo tells me everybody's used to going through you. Theo said that. That's what you heard? I've spent years making things easier for you, for me or around me. He leaned against the support post my father refused to remove. I don't know what you want me to say. I want you to stop speaking for me. All right. To anyone. That's not realistic. It is extremely realistic. If someone asks what I think, tell them to ask me. What if they ask whether you're okay? Tell them to ask me. What if I don't think you are? Ask me. And if you say you're fine, believe me or don't. But you don't get to turn your opinion into my answer. He looked almost amused. You think that's how marriage works? No, I said. I think that may be why ours doesn't. The amusement vanished. We stood 6 feet apart in the kitchen we had opened up together, divided by a support post neither of us had chosen. Nolan went upstairs without another word. He packed one rolling suitcase, the navy one we used for weekend trips. I heard the wheels bump down each step. He carried his garment bag over one shoulder and had his shaving kit tucked under his arm. At the back door, he paused. How long do you want me gone? I don't know. A day? A week? I said I don't know. I need something to tell Evelyn. Tell her to ask me. He gave me a tired look. Then he left. A few minutes later, Theo came in from the garage, wiping his hands on a red shop rag. Nolan said, you might need me to shut down for a while. I stared at him. He said, what? He said things are tense and the noise might be too much. He said that just now? By the driveway. Did you ask me? That's why I'm here. No, I don't need you to shut down. You sure? Yes. I can work at Benny's for a few days. The noise doesn't bother me. It has before. When? Theo frowned. Last summer. Nolan asked me not to run the planer in the morning because you hadn't slept. I was in Norfolk last summer. You were home some of it. Not the week you stopped using the planer. How do you know what week? Because I came home and asked why 6 cabinet doors were still rough. Theo's expression shifted as he remembered. He said, your schedule changed. My schedule didn't change. Theo folded the rag into quarters. Okay. Stop saying okay like that. Like what? Like I'm giving you instructions from the ledge of a building. I'm not. You're looking at me the way he does. I'm looking at you like my cousin just asked her husband to leave. I didn't ask him to leave. Theo looked toward the empty driveway. What happened then? He decided to stay with my mother, and you told him not to. Yes. So you wanted him to stay? No. Theo rubbed his forehead. This family needs diagrams. I wanted him to go somewhere else. Why? Because my mother already thinks he's protecting her from me. Did she say that? Not those words. Then what words? I opened my mouth and heard how it would sound. Puts you in a state, didn't want to fight, afraid you'd be overwhelmed. None of it was an accusation by itself. Nolan didn't need accusations. He built meaning out of tone and repetition. Theo set the folded rag on the counter. I'm going to keep working, he said. If the noise bothers you, tell me. It won't. Still, tell me. I will. You promise? I wanted to ask whether I had ever failed to report a malfunction in my life. Instead, I said, I promise. He went back outside. I showered, dressed, and drove to work with no memory of 3 traffic lights between my street and the highway. My job was managing facilities for a regional chain of rehabilitation clinics. Roof leaks, generator tests, damaged flooring, elevator inspections. Problems announced themselves, and if they didn't, there were schedules designed to catch them. I liked work where neglect left stains. At 10:15, my phone buzzed. Mom, Nolan is here. I wish you'd told me things were this bad. At 10:16, Paige, did you seriously throw him out? At 10:19, Theo, planer starting. This is me asking. I texted Theo first, proceed. Then Paige, I didn't throw him out. 3 dots appeared, vanished, appeared again. He said you told him the marriage doesn't work. I typed, that isn't the same thing. Before I sent it, I deleted it. My mother's message stayed unanswered. At lunch, I went outside and sat in my truck with the engine off. The July heat gathered beneath the windshield. Across the parking lot, a landscaping crew fed branches into a chipper, the machine reducing whole limbs to noise and dust. I searched for Denise Carver's number. Denise had handled Theo's property dispute with a former business partner and once made him cry by explaining what the phrase verbal agreement was worth. He called her terrifying with deep affection. I had met her twice. She wore bright red glasses and never pretended small talk was free. Her assistant answered, "Carver Law. My name is Mara Vance. I need to schedule a consultation. What kind of matter?" I watched another branch disappear into the chipper. "Divorce," I said. The word sounded less like an ending than I expected. It sounded like something finally said out loud. The assistant offered me an appointment for the following afternoon. "Ms. Carver has 45 minutes at 3:30. I'll take it. There's a consultation fee," I assumed. "She'll want the date of marriage, current addresses, approximate income, property, debt, and whether there's any immediate safety concern." No. No safety concern? Correct. The assistant paused, probably waiting to see if I would add something. I didn't. 3:30 tomorrow, she said. After I hung up, I stayed in the truck until the landscaping crew finished feeding the last branch into the chipper. One of the workers raked the scattered leaves into a neat pile, then tossed that in too. At my desk, I opened a spreadsheet for generator inspections and spent 20 minutes staring at the same empty cell. Nolan texted at noon. "I took enough clothes for the week. I won't come by without asking." It was exactly the kind of message a reasonable man sent to an unreasonable wife. I typed, "Thank you," deleted it. Typed, "You don't need permission to enter your own house." Deleted that too. Finally, I sent, "Understood." His reply came immediately. "I hope we can handle this with some compassion." I put the phone face down. That evening, I ate the roast chicken labeled "For Mari" over the kitchen sink. It was good. Nolan had used too much rosemary, as usual, and my mother had cooked the breast until it could absorb liquids as an industrial application. But it tasted like every family meal I had spent the last day insisting I should have attended. I stood there chewing dry chicken and imagined the empty place at the table. Then I realized there might not have been one. That was worse. The next morning, Theo started the planer at 8:03. My phone buzzed at 8:02. Loud thing commencing. I texted back, "Your technical vocabulary inspires confidence." He replied with a thumbs up. Then 3 seconds later, a second message. That sounded sarcastic. Proceeding anyway. The planer screamed to life. I carried my coffee into the garage and found Theo guiding a narrow oak board through the machine. He wore hearing protection and a dust mask, so he didn't see me until the board emerged. He shut the machine off and lifted one side of the earmuffs. "Too much?" "No. You came out here. I'm going to work. You're holding coffee and wearing slippers." I looked down. The slippers were gray, rubber-soled, and had been a retirement gift from a sergeant who thought my civilian life would involve robes and leisurely breakfasts. I usually wore them only as far as the mailbox before realizing I was still in them. "I'm conducting a noise inspection." "Pass?" "Barely." Theo hooked the earmuffs around his neck. "Did you sleep?" "Yes." That answer was fast. "I slept 4 hours." "That isn't sleep. That's a hostage video. I have a meeting at 3:30. "With who?" "Denise Carver." Theo's expression lost its humor. "Oh, you recommended her." "Not for this. You said she was the only lawyer you'd trust to tell you the truth before billing you for it." "That was about my shop, I know." He looked toward the house, as if Nolan might still be visible through the wall. "Are you sure?" "No." "Does Nolan know?" "No." "Does Paige?" "No." "Does Evelyn?" I gave him a look. "Right," he said. "Obviously not Evelyn." I set my coffee on the workbench, away from a jar of cloudy mineral spirits. I'm getting information. Information has a way of becoming paperwork, only if you sign it. Theo rubbed the pad of his thumb over the smooth board. "Nolan helped me get this place set up," he said. "I know. When Benny raised my rent, Nolan's the one who said your garage was empty. It was my garage. I know that too. You don't have to choose between us. Everybody says that right before making a list of who chose wrong. I'm not making a list. You make lists for vacations. Because you once went to North Carolina without socks, they sell socks there. I picked up my coffee. Keep working. I'll tell you if anything changes. What if Nolan tells me something changed? Ask me. He gave me a tired look. What? I'm asking both of you from now on. That's fair. It's also going to take forever. Denise Carver's office occupied the second floor of a converted house downtown, above a tax preparer and beside a store that sold candles with names like Library Rain and Divorced in Tuscany. The waiting room had 2 chairs, 1 plant, and no magazines. Denise appeared at 3:32 wearing red glasses and carrying a yellow legal pad. Mara Vance? I stood. She shook my hand. Theo says you can rebuild a transmission in a parking lot. Theo thinks everything under a hood is a transmission. Good. You know he's an unreliable witness. Her office had no family photographs. 1 framed print of a black dog hung behind her desk. She sat and looked at the intake form I had completed. 19 years married. Yes. No children. No. House purchased during the marriage. Yes. Both names on the deed and mortgage. Yes. Retirement accounts, 2 vehicles, ordinary consumer debt. No business ownership between you. Correct. Your cousin's use of the garage? Month to month. Mostly verbal. Theo and verbal agreements. She wrote something. A lifelong romance. I almost smiled. Denise placed the pen across the pad. Do you want a divorce, or do you want your husband frightened by the possibility of one? A divorce. You hesitated. I wanted the answer to be accurate. That is not the same as being certain. I know. Why now? I told her about the dinner. Not every line. Not the casserole, the mug, or the pretzel under the sofa. I gave her what I thought were the relevant facts. Nolan's conflicting stories, his habit of speaking for me, his use of old symptoms to explain current disagreements, and the years I had spent finding out what people believed only after they acted on it. Denise listened without writing. When I finished, she said, "That sounds like a marriage you may want to end. It doesn't tell me why you need a lawyer today." I shifted in the chair. "He's at my mother's." "Did you make him leave?" "No." "Did you threaten him?" "No." "Has he threatened you?" "No." "Destroyed property?" "No." "Restricted access to money?" "No." "Then this is not an emergency." "I didn't say it was." "You're sitting like it is." I relaxed my shoulders. Denise leaned back. "What result do you want?" "I want him to stop telling people who I am. A divorce court can divide assets and obligations. It cannot order your former spouse to have an honest interpretation of you." "I know." "Do you?" "I want the house." "That's property." I asked what result you want. "The house is the result." "Why?" "My father rebuilt it with me. And your husband lived there for 19 years. 17. We rented for the first 2. Details are useful. They aren't magic. I liked her less than Theo had promised. Denise picked up her pen again. If you file, assume Mr. Vance will tell his version of the marriage. Assume your mother, sister, and cousin may be asked what they observed. Assume anything you wrote, recorded, threatened, damaged, or admitted can become relevant. I haven't threatened or damaged anything. Treatment. I knew what she meant, yes, years ago. 4. Sleep disturbance, hypervigilance, anxiety after deployment. Diagnosis? I told her. Hospitalization? No. Current treatment? Occasional appointments. No medication now. Any incident involving police? No. Employer complaints? No. Discipline since leaving the Army? No. She made 3 notes. Your service is not evidence that you're unstable, she said. Neither is seeking treatment. But if he tells the court he's afraid of you, we answer with facts. We do not answer with outrage that he could say such a thing. I'm not outraged. You're furious. That isn't illegal. No. But anger makes people generous. They give away information no one earned. I looked at the black dog print behind her. It had one white paw and the disappointed face of an animal who had heard every excuse. "Do you think he'll do that?" I asked. "You know him." "I don't. He won't come at me directly, then expect him to come sideways." She slid a folder across the desk. It contained her fee agreement, document checklist, and a page titled Conduct During Separation. No social media, no changing locks, no disposing of property. Communicate in writing when possible. Do not remove a spouse from insurance. Do not clean out accounts. Do not make threats, even joking ones. "People joke about threats?" I asked. "People get creative when they're unhappy." I read the list twice. "If I sign this, how quickly does it start?" "The representation starts when I receive the signed agreement and retainer. The divorce starts when we file. And the house? You both have rights to it. If you can't agree who stays there, one of you may ask the court for temporary exclusive possession. That requires more than disliking each other. He won't do that." Denise capped her pen. "Then you'll have one fewer problem." I left with the folder under my arm. Paige was sitting on my front steps when I got home. She wore navy hospital scrubs and had her hair twisted into a knot that was coming loose. Paige managed the respiratory therapy department at Bellwether General and considered lunch a rumor spread by office workers. A takeout cup sat beside her, sweating into the concrete. "Mom said you weren't answering," she said. "So she sent you?" "She didn't send me." "Did Nolan?" "No one sent me, Mara." I unlocked the door. Paige followed me inside without waiting for an invitation. She stopped in the kitchen and looked around as if expecting broken furniture. "What?" I asked. "Nothing." "You checked the room." I looked at the room. "For damage?" Her face tightened. "This is why talking to you is impossible." "Because I notice where you look? Because you turn everything into a cross-examination." I set Denise's folder on the table, face down. Paige saw it anyway. "What's that?" "Nothing you need to worry about." "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Use Nolan's line when you want to shut me out." That surprised me enough to stop. Paige picked up her drink but didn't take a sip. "He does it," she said. "He says something is too much for you. You say something isn't my concern. Either way, I'm outside the door. I didn't know you felt that way. You never asked. You never told me. I'm telling you now." The planer started in the garage, one long mechanical whine. Paige flinched. I didn't. She looked at the folder again. "Are you filing for divorce?" "I had a consultation." "Oh God, not helpful? Does Nolan know?" "No, Mom's gonna lose her mind." "This is not happening to Mom. You really believe that? It's my marriage. It hasn't been just your marriage in years." There was no accusation in her voice. That made it harder to dismiss. Paige sat at the table. "When you were gone," she said, "Nolan became the person we called. Dad's appointments, Mom's roof, holidays, everything. Then you came home and acted like we were supposed to hand your place back without admitting somebody else had been standing in it. I didn't ask him to stand in my place. No, you asked him to take care of everyone. He was my husband, and he did." I sat across from her. "That doesn't give him the right to decide what I'm allowed to know." "No." The answer came quickly. Paige stared at the lid of her cup. "What he did with the dinner was wrong," she said. "I should have called you. I didn't because part of me was relieved you weren't coming." My throat tightened. "Why?" "Because when you're there, Dad's death belongs to you." I said nothing. "You missed the end?" she continued. "And somehow that made your grief bigger than everybody else's. Mom comforted you. Nolan protected you." I made coffee and answered the door and listened to people say how terrible it was that you couldn't get home. I didn't ask them to say that. "I know. Did you blame me?" "Yes." The word sat between us, clean and ugly. "Do you still?" Paige looked toward the garage. "Sometimes." I nodded. She looked almost angry that I hadn't argued. "Say something." "I don't know what to say." "That's new. I'm sorry you were alone." "I wasn't alone. Nolan was there." "Of course he was." Paige stood and pushed her chair in. I'm not choosing sides, she said. I didn't ask you to. You will. After she left, I remained at the table with Denise's folder between my hands. Nolan had been right about one thing. He wasn't the only person who had lived through those years, but he had taken everyone's pain, translated it into evidence against me, and made himself indispensable in the translation. I turned the folder over. The signature line waited on the last page. I signed it. I photographed the signature and emailed it to Denise before I could turn certainty back into analysis. Her office confirmed receipt at 8 the next morning. The retainer cleared by 10. At 11:12, Denise called. I can prepare the complaint today, she said. Has Mr. Vance retained counsel? Not that I know of. Do you intend to tell him before he's served? Yes. Why? Because we were married 19 years. That is an emotional answer. It's the one I have. Denise made a small sound that might have been disapproval or a chair creaking. Tell him in a public place or by phone. I'm not afraid of him. Safety is not the only reason to avoid a private confrontation. I'm not asking permission. No, you're paying me for advice and then announcing your plans. That's a popular arrangement. I'll call him. Keep it short. Don't negotiate. Don't explain every injury in the marriage. Nothing useful has ever followed the phrase, since we're being honest. I'll remember that. And Mara? Yes? Write every message as though a tired judge will read it aloud in a room where no one likes you. That's specific. It helps. I called Nolan at noon. He answered on the second ring. Hey. The warmth in his voice made me wonder whether my mother had told him to sound hopeful. Can you talk? I'm between meetings. I hired an attorney. Silence. On his end, a door closed. For what? I nearly admired the question. For the divorce. You filed. She's preparing it. Mara, Jesus, I wanted you to hear it from me before a stranger comes to my office. I don't know where you'll be served. You don't know? You started this process and you don't know? I hired someone who does. He breathed through his nose. This is because of the dinner? No. It happened 3 days ago. It clarified something. A misunderstanding clarified that you want to end a 19-year marriage? It wasn't a misunderstanding. I apologized. You said you were sorry I wasn't there. I don't know what combination of words you're demanding. I'm not demanding one. You hired a lawyer. Yes. Another door opened on his side. A man's voice said something I couldn't make out. Nolan covered the phone, replied, then returned. I'm leaving work early, he said. Why? To come home. You're staying with Mom. It's still my house. I know. I want to talk in person. We're talking now. No, you're delivering a report. That's why Denise told me to keep it short. You're already taking her advice on how to speak to your husband? I took your advice for years. The line went quiet. I closed my eyes. Denise had specifically warned me about honesty. I'll be at the house at 5, Nolan said. I won't. Where will you be? Not there. That's ridiculous. It prevents an argument. We need to discuss what happens next. We can do that after you have counsel. So now I need a lawyer to talk to my wife? I don't know, Nolan. Apparently, I needed one to talk about you. He hung up. At 4:50, I parked outside a coffee shop half a mile from the house and watched the clock on my dashboard. It felt foolish. I had supervised maintenance shutdowns with men who treated safety rules as insults to their ancestry. I had walked into hangars where everybody stopped talking because the woman in charge had arrived. Now I was hiding from a conversation in a parking space beneath a sign advertising lavender cold foam. At 5:04, the camera over the garage sent an alert to my phone. Nolan's car entered the driveway. He got out, looked toward the house, then at the camera. He lifted one hand. Not a wave. An acknowledgement. 5 minutes later, he texted, I'm here. You aren't. Denise's tired judge sat invisibly beside me. I replied, I told you I would not be available. Please send any immediate concerns by text. The dots appeared. This is my home too. I know. Are you refusing me access? No. Then where are you? I didn't answer. He remained for 43 minutes. The camera showed him carry out a cardboard box, his laptop bag, 2 garment bags, and the small wooden valet tray that had sat on his dresser since our 10th anniversary. He loaded everything carefully. Before leaving, he stood beneath the maple and looked up at the house. I turned off the video. When I returned, the front door was unlocked. I checked it once. Upstairs, the closet looked as though a tooth had been pulled from it. His blue shirts were gone. His shoes were gone except for a pair of old running shoes he hated, but refused to discard. On the bathroom counter, he had taken his toothbrush and left the charger. His wedding ring sat beside it. I picked it up. Nolan had worn that ring through yard work, hospital visits, a broken finger, and one disastrous painting project that left a white stripe across the gold for months. He took it off only to sleep, placing it in the wooden tray he had just carried out. He had left the ring where I would find it and taken the thing that usually held it. I put it back exactly where it was. Downstairs, a yellow note waited on the kitchen table. I took personal clothing and work items. We need to discuss a fair schedule for the house. Please do not remove or dispose of my belongings. The words were harmless, responsible even. I photographed the note and sent it to Denise. She replied, "That's fine. Confirm in writing that his belongings will remain undisturbed." I did. Then I started dinner. At 6:30, someone knocked. My mother never rang the bell. She said doorbells were aggressive. I opened the door and found her holding a grocery bag with both hands. Evelyn had my eyes, although people said mine looked harder. Her silver hair was cut in a smooth chin-length bob. Paige maintained with monthly appointments and stern reminders. She wore linen pants and the expression of someone arriving to prevent a disaster that had already happened. "I brought soup," she said. "Why? You have to eat. I own food, not soup." I stepped aside. She carried the bag into the kitchen and began unloading it without asking. Chicken noodle soup, crackers, sliced melon, and a package of chocolate cookies I had loved when I was 20. "Nolan told me you filed." I told him I hired an attorney. He came home devastated. "This is his home. You know what I mean?" I leaned against the counter. "Did he send you?" "No." "Did Paige?" "Why does someone have to send me?" That's what Paige said. "Well, maybe you should listen when 2 people tell you the same thing." She opened my refrigerator and frowned at its contents. "You let that chicken dry out. It arrived that way." She shut the door harder than necessary. "This is not funny. I'm not laughing. Your husband is in my guest room looking like somebody died. Somebody did, 4 years ago." Apparently, there was a dinner. Her face tightened. "So this is punishment?" "No. You were left out of one evening and now you're destroying your marriage." I was removed from an evening and given 3 different reasons why. He made a mistake. He has been making the same mistake for years. What mistake? Deciding what I can handle, telling the rest of you, letting me find out afterward. My mother took the soup from the bag and placed it on the stove. "He took care of us." "I know. He took your father to appointments. He fixed things around my house. He sat with me when I couldn't sleep. I know. Do you?" I almost laughed at how the phrase had traveled through the family. She turned toward me. "You left, Mara. I served. You always say that like it ends the conversation." "What do you want me to call it? You chose a life that took you away. So did Dad when he drove a truck 5 nights a week. Nobody turned that into a character defect. Your father came home every weekend, and I came home every time they let me, but not when we needed you." The soup container popped as the heat changed the plastic. My mother switched off the burner and moved it to a pot. "When Dad got sick," she said, "you sent schedules, phone numbers, lists of questions for the doctors." Nolan came and sat in the waiting room. "I was in Germany. I know where you were. I called every day. You called to solve things. I thought that was helping. It was. And sometimes I wanted my daughter to say she was scared." I looked down. The countertop had a nick near the stove from where my father dropped a cast iron skillet during the renovation. Nolan had suggested replacing the whole section. I had refused. "I was scared," I said. 4 years late. That seems to be the family verdict. Her expression softened, but only for a moment. "I'm not attacking you. You came here to ask me not to divorce Nolan. I came here to ask why you're punishing the one person who stayed." The sentence was worse in my mother's voice than I had imagined it. "He stayed because I asked him to build a life with me," I said. "He didn't stay as my replacement. No one replaced you." "Then why does everybody need his permission to know me? That is not fair." Neither was asking him whether I should attend my own father's dinner. I didn't ask permission. You accepted his answer. My mother stirred the soup. "Because he's usually right about what you need." There it was. Not Nolan's lie, her choice. I pulled out a chair and sat down. "What do you think I need now? To calm down?" I nodded. She looked alarmed by the lack of resistance. "I am calm," I said, "and I'm still filing." The spoon struck the side of the pot. "You'll lose this house. That's between Nolan and me. He loves this house. So do I. He made it a home while you were gone." The sentence sat in the kitchen with us. I stood and walked to the front door. My mother followed slowly. "You're asking me to leave?" "Yes. I brought you dinner." "Thank you." "Mara, I'm not throwing the soup out. I'm asking you to go before we say something we can't pretend was a misunderstanding." She picked up her purse. At the doorway, she touched my arm. Not a hug, a test. "You don't have to fight every person who loves you," she said. I looked at her hand. Then, stop arriving on his side, she left. The soup simmered for 20 minutes before I remembered to turn it off. At 9, Nolan emailed me instead of texting. "Mara, given the escalation over the past several days, I think we should keep communication in writing and avoid being alone together until emotions settle. I'm not trying to punish you. I want to make sure we both feel safe and can remember events accurately." I read it twice. Then a third time. He had not accused me of anything. That was the skill of it. He had put safety, memory, and my emotions into one polite paragraph and left his own behavior out entirely. I forwarded it to Denise. Her response came 3 minutes later. "Do not argue with the wording. Reply only to necessary logistics." I closed the laptop. In the kitchen, my father's mug hung above the sink, dry and unbroken. I stood beneath it and understood that Nolan had stopped trying to win the argument. He had started building the record. I answered at 9:17. "Agreed. Written communication is appropriate. Let me know what personal items you need and propose a time to collect them. Theo can be present," Nolan replied at 9:20. "Theo isn't neutral. I typed 3 versions before sending one. You may suggest another adult we both trust." His answer took longer. "I'll think about it." By morning, my own message looked cold. His looked cautious. If a stranger read only that exchange, they would see a frightened man trying to choose a safe witness and a woman issuing terms from his house. I started to write Denise an explanation. Then I deleted it. The complaint was filed that afternoon. Nolan was served at my mother's house 2 days later. I knew because Evelyn called at 7:05 and left a voicemail without saying hello. A man came to my door while my neighbors were outside. "I hope you're satisfied." I deleted it, then recovered it from the trash because Denise had told me not to delete anything. Nolan emailed at 8. There was no reason to humiliate me at Evelyn's home. I forwarded it to Denise with a question. Could he have been served elsewhere? Her response came before I left for work. Yes. He could also have accepted service voluntarily through counsel. He did not have counsel when contacted. Do not apologize for standard procedure. Nolan retained an attorney the next day. His name was Christopher Bell, and his website showed him leaning against a desk with his jacket open, smiling as if divorce were a misunderstanding he could clear up before lunch. Denise knew him. "He likes urgent motions," she said. "What does that mean?" "It means he understands that the first person to describe a crisis often gets to define it." Is there a crisis? Not yet. That yet stayed with me. I began photographing the house, not because Denise told me to. She had asked for a basic property list and recent account statements. I took pictures because once I started, stopping felt irresponsible. The dining room table, The television, the framed print Nolan bought in Asheville, his running shoes, the wedding ring beside the toothbrush charger, every tool in the garage, each of my father's chisels against the numbered outline on the pegboard. Theo found me taking pictures of extension cords. You selling insurance now? Documenting property. Those orange cords are mine. I know. You took a picture, so nobody says I took them. But you didn't. That's why the picture helps. He watched me photograph the air compressor. You planning to inventory sawdust? Only the high-value sawdust. That pile by the sander is vintage. I lowered the phone. Theo pulled his dust mask down. Nolan called me. When? Last night. What did he want? To know if he could keep some boxes in the back of the garage. What did you say? I said he needed to ask you. Good. He also asked if you'd been sleeping. I looked at him. I told him I didn't know. You knew enough to ask me last week. Yeah, and you nearly bit my head off. I apologized. You did. What else did he ask? If you'd seemed angry, if the noise was bothering you, if you'd said anything about him coming back. What did you tell him? That I'm restoring furniture, not monitoring a border crossing. Thank you. He laughed. Of course he did. Theo picked up a sanding block and turned it in his hands. He sounded worried. He wanted to sound worried. Maybe. The answer irritated me more than if he had disagreed. You believe him? I believe he's worried. That isn't the same thing as having a reason. I didn't say it was. You said maybe. Mara, I'm not doing this. Doing what? Passing a loyalty test every time one of you calls. I didn't call you. You know what I mean. He tossed the sanding block onto the bench. It struck harder than he intended. Nolan helped me when Benny was squeezing me out, he said. He came down here on weekends. He installed the lights. He found that refrigerator. I know. And you gave me the space. Yes, you both did things for me. Now each of you looks at me like gratitude is a vote. I'm not asking you to vote. You asked if I believed him. About me. About his feelings. You keep treating those like the same question. He walked to the sideboard and bent over a drawer. I stood there holding my phone. I'm sorry, I said. He ran one finger along the drawer joint. I don't need you to be sorry. I need both of you to stop making me the hallway between rooms you won't enter. That was annoyingly specific. I rehearsed it. I could tell. He glanced at me. The edge of his mouth moved. I put the phone in my pocket. How much documentation is enough? I asked. For court? For me? Theo looked around the garage. You photographed the mug? No. Then you're not done. I laughed and he smiled. I did not photograph the mug. For 11 days, nothing dramatic happened. That should have calmed me. Instead, the quiet became another system I needed to inspect. Nolan requested 2 suits, tax documents, a blue wool coat, and the small radio on his nightstand. I boxed everything except the tax documents, which I copied before placing them in a sealed envelope. He chose Paige as the person to accompany him. I agreed. He canceled the first scheduled pickup because of work. He canceled the second because my mother had a migraine and he did not want to leave her alone. On the third, Paige arrived without him. He's on a call, she said. I'm supposed to get the boxes. Denise advised that he confirm what he takes, then you can watch me. That isn't the point. Paige stood on the porch in her scrubs, visibly counting her breaths. I just worked 13 hours. I haven't eaten since a yogurt at 6 this morning. Please do not make me go back and explain chain of custody to Nolan. It isn't chain of custody. I don't care what it's called. I let her in. The boxes waited beside the staircase, labeled in black marker, suits, coat, radio, tax copies. Paige read the labels. You packed for him? He requested specific things. This looks like he died. He didn't. I know, Mara. She opened the box with the suits. Don't. I'm checking. He can check? He asked me to. No, he asked you to collect them. Her hands dropped. Do you hear yourself? Yes? Do you? I folded my arms, then deliberately unfolded them. Fine. Check. She moved the tissue paper aside. Nolan's charcoal suit lay on top. "This is the one he wore to Dad's funeral," she said. "I know." He held Mom upright through the service. "I was there. I didn't say you weren't. You looked at me when you said it. I'm looking at you because you're in front of me." We stood over the box, both breathing too carefully. Paige closed it. "He isn't trying to take the house from you," she said. "Did he say that?" "He said he wants a fair solution. That isn't an answer. It is if you aren't looking for a threat. What does he think is fair? He stayed here. He maintained it. So did I. You were gone half the time. There it is." "What?" "The part everybody keeps circling." Paige's eyes flashed. "You want us to act like being deployed means you were also here. No, I want you to stop acting like being away means I abandoned you. No one said abandoned. Nolan doesn't have to use the word. He just lists all the things he did while I was gone, and the word builds itself." Paige picked up the tax envelope. "You're divorcing him. He gets to say what the marriage cost him. So do I. Then say it." "I am." "No, you're itemizing." She tapped the label on the envelope. I looked at the boxes and saw what she meant. Every object accounted for. Every exchange narrowed until nobody could accuse me of anything except being difficult to accuse. "What does he say it cost him?" I asked. Paige hesitated. "Ask him." "I'm asking what he told you." "He said he spent years waiting for you to come home, and when you finally did, you treated him like part of the furniture." That sounded like Nolan. It also sounded like something I had earned. Paige lifted the suit box. I took the heavier box of tax papers and the radio. At her car, she opened the trunk. A small overnight bag already sat inside beside a grocery sack. "Mom okay?" I asked. "She's tired." "From the migraine?" "From everybody." "Does she need anything?" Paige gave me a look. "What?" "You're doing it." "Doing what?" "Offering a task. I asked if she needs anything. She needs you to call her without discussing Nolan. I don't know how to do that right now. That's honest, at least." We loaded the boxes. Before she closed the trunk, Paige touched my wrist. "Don't make me your witness," she said. "I haven't. Not yet." She drove away. Nolan confirmed receipt by email that evening. "Thank you for taking care with my belongings. I appreciate Paige helping us keep this civil." Us. As though he and I had jointly hired my sister to protect the peace. I showed the message to Denise during our scheduled call. "Don't answer," she said. "I wasn't going to." "Good." Is his attorney still doing nothing? His response is due next week. What do you think he'll ask for? Division of property, temporary financial arrangements, possibly exclusive use of the residence. He has somewhere to live. That doesn't prevent him from asking. On what grounds? Denise paused. What has he documented? Nothing happened. That was not my question. I thought about the email. Safe. Remember events accurately. Emotions settle. The kitchen argument, I said. My asking him to stop speaking for me. My telling him our marriage didn't work. Did you threaten him? No. Block him from leaving? No. Damage anything? No. Then we respond if he files. I went to bed angry at hypothetical paperwork. At 2 a.m, I woke because the maple branch scraped the gutter. Once. Twice. I checked the back door, then the front. I stood in the dark hallway with my hand on the deadbolt and understood the trap. If I checked nothing, I lay awake. If I checked twice, Nolan's version of me became true. The next afternoon, Christopher Bell filed Nolan's response. Denise sent it with one sentence. Read once. Do not contact him. The motion asked the court to grant Nolan temporary exclusive possession of the house and restrict me from being present when he collected property. Attached was Nolan's sworn statement. The first paragraph described my service with admiration. The second described my treatment. The third said my decision to file had caused a rapid and concerning escalation in behavior. He listed the wrench beneath the bed, his injured wrist, the sleepless nights, the locked windows, my interrogations of family members, and the fact that I had refused to meet him alone at the house. He said he had left because I ordered him out, and he feared what might happen if he stayed. At the end, he wrote that he loved me, respected my sacrifice, and believed the woman I had been before my deployments would never have wanted him to feel unsafe. I read it once. Then I called Denise and said, "He wants the house." "No," she said. "He wants the court to believe he needs protection from you. The house is what he gets if they do. I did not order him out." "I know," Denise said. "He wrote it under oath." "I know. I have the messages." "Yes." "He told me he was going to Evelyn's." I told him not to. "Mara." "What? Stop trying the case against me." I sat back in Denise's office. She had printed Nolan's affidavit and marked it in green ink. Not red, she explained, because red made clients feel graded. The green was worse. It looked clinical. On the desk between us sat my phone, the yellow note Nolan left, screenshots of our messages, and a still image from the garage camera showing him entering the house alone after claiming he was afraid to do so. Denise tapped the affidavit. "His statement is selective," she said. "That is not the same as easily disproved. He says I forced him out. He says your behavior made him feel he had no reasonable choice but to leave. That is lawyer language for forced him out. It is lawyer language designed to survive the message where he announced he was leaving." I looked at the green marks. Beside the paragraph about the wrench, Denise had written, "Old." Beside the injured wrist, "Treated? No repeat." Beside rapid escalation, "What conduct? He took one bad period in my life and stretched it over 8 years. Yes. And the service language? It lets him insult you while appearing compassionate. Can we say that? Not in those words. Why not? Because judges have ears. They know when someone is being invited to resent a party. I'm already a party. Legally. Don't become one socially." Denise turned her legal pad toward herself. We answer with the timeline. Treatment completed. No violence, no police, no employment issues, no threats. He left voluntarily, returned alone, entered freely, collected property, and communicated without expressing immediate fear until after the complaint was filed. He expressed concern. He used the word safe. Exactly. Concern is not an event. I need events. I thought about the kitchen, the tea, the casserole, the mug. He says I interrogated my family. Did you? I asked them what he told them. Then we don't argue over the verb. We explain the reason. She picked up the camera still. This helps. It also makes me look like I'm monitoring him. It's an exterior security camera. I checked it. You were avoiding a private confrontation because you told me to. Then for once, my advice survives contact with you. I looked through the rest of Nolan's statement. He wants me out until the divorce is final. He wants exclusive possession while the case is pending. That could be months. Where am I supposed to go? He suggests the apartment complex near your work. I stared at her. He selected an apartment? He says it would reduce your commute. That's considerate. Do not reward me for not laughing. The apartment complex was new, gray, and visible from my office parking lot. Nolan and I had driven past it the year before. I had said the balconies looked too small to hold a chair. He had said that was efficient because nobody actually sat on balconies. He knows I hate that place. I doubt the court cares. I care. Then help me keep you in the house. Her phrasing irritated me, though the request was reasonable. We spent 2 hours building a response. The text where Nolan said he was staying with my mother went behind tab 1. His note acknowledging continued access to the house went behind tab 2. The camera still went behind tab 3. My treatment history went into a separate folder Denise would use only if necessary. When she asked whether Theo would confirm that I had not been violent or destructive, I hesitated. He doesn't want to be in the middle. He rents workspace from you and knows both parties. He's already in the middle. The question is whether we need him to speak from there. I'll ask. Don't coach him. I know. You say that like a person with a rich history of following instructions. Theo was replacing the leather top on a writing desk when I returned. He listened while pressing a brass tack into place with his thumb. "An affidavit?" he said. "Maybe. Denise wants to know what you've observed. I've observed that both of you are exhausting. That may not help. It's the truth. You can say that." "What does Nolan want me to say? I haven't asked him." "He will. You don't have to do anything." Theo picked up a small tack hammer. "That means you want me to? It means I'm trying not to." He drove the tack with 2 light taps. "I've never seen you threaten him," he said. "I've never seen you break anything. I have seen you get angry. So has everyone. I've seen Nolan get angry too. What does that look like? You know, I want your answer." Theo lined up the next tack. He gets softer. The accuracy of it made me look toward the house. "He lowers his voice," Theo continued. "Starts asking questions he already knows the answer to. Makes you sound loud even when you aren't. Would you tell Denise that? I'll tell her what I saw. I'm not telling her what it means. That's fair." Nolan called again. What did he ask this time? If I'd be willing to be there while he picked up more things. "Are you?" "Yeah. Tell him to email me a list." "I did. Thank you." Theo set down the hammer. He also said he wants to talk to you about the house before the hearing. He can talk through Christopher Bell. He said lawyers make everything more hostile. He hired one who filed a motion to remove me from my home. I know. "Do you?" He gave me a flat look. "Sorry," I said. "You're both contagious." Nolan emailed a list before dinner. Winter clothing, remaining shoes, personal records in the upstairs desk, brown leather briefcase, toiletries, coffee grinder. The coffee grinder was ours, but I did not care enough to argue. He proposed Saturday at 10 with Theo present. I agreed. Saturday morning, I packed nothing. If Nolan wanted his property, he could identify it himself while we were both there. I opened curtains, made coffee, and moved my father's mug from the drying rack back to its hook above the sink. At 9:40, Theo texted from the hardware store. "Line here is a human rights violation. 10 minutes late." At 9:58, Nolan pulled into the driveway. He wore jeans and a gray sweater I had given him for Christmas. His phone was in his hand. I opened the door before he knocked. Theo's delayed. I can wait. He stepped inside, then paused as though crossing a boundary I had drawn. The performance angered me. It may also have been genuine. That was Nolan's gift. He could feel the thing he was using. "You don't have to stand there," I said. "I don't want you to feel crowded. I don't." He walked into the kitchen and set his phone face down beside the fruit bowl. "You got the motion," he said. "Yes. I told Christopher I wanted to talk first. The filing says otherwise. He said we needed to protect the status quo. You living with my mother is the status quo. I shouldn't have to live in a guest room while you stay here. You chose to leave. After you said our marriage didn't work. That is not an eviction notice. You made it clear I wasn't wanted. Being unwanted isn't the same as being unsafe." His expression tightened. "I never said you'd hurt me. You described an injured wrist from 8 years ago. Because it happened, you left out what happened after. That doesn't erase it. No. Treatment doesn't erase anything. It changes what happens next." He glanced at the phone. I noticed, but only because I knew him. I thought he was waiting for Theo to call. "The apartment near your work is nice," he said. I laughed once. "You picked it because I hate it. I picked it because it's practical. For me, for both of us. I could move back, maintain the house, and you'd be 5 minutes from your office. My father built half this kitchen, and I lived in it. So did I, between deployments." The words came out before he softened them. There he was. "You want the house because it proves you were the one who stayed," I said. "I want one thing that doesn't disappear when you decide to come home." I came home every time. And everything had to rearrange around you. What rearranged? Our meals, our sleep, holidays, plans, the way people spoke. Whether Theo could run a machine in a building 50 feet away. I never asked him to stop. I did because you needed rest. You told him I was home when I wasn't. I got the dates wrong. You got whatever version made you useful. Nolan went to the sink. He took my father's mug from the hook. Put it down. I'm getting coffee. Use another cup. He held the mug against his chest. You do this with everything. You freeze it at the moment you left. Your father's mug, his tools, this house. Then you come back and tell the rest of us we touched it wrong. I asked you to stop speaking for me. Your family comes to me because I answer. You answer before they ask me. Because when they ask you, you give them instructions. That doesn't make me unstable. No, the not sleeping makes you unstable. My skin went cold. I sleep. You don't. I had a problem 8 years ago. I got help. You still check the doors. So do you. Not twice. He said it softly. I looked toward the window. Theo's truck had not returned. You tell them, I don't sleep. I check every door twice. Sometimes I hear things that aren't there, I said. That was 8 years ago, Nolan. I got help. You keep me trapped in the worst months of my life because everyone admires you for surviving them. I did survive them. So did I. You don't get to decide when everyone else stops being affected, and you don't get to turn being affected into ownership. I helped build this family while you were gone. You helped me build it. Then you removed me from it. He set the mug down too hard. Coffee splashed over the rim. I didn't remove you. You canceled the dinner. I spared everyone another night of you measuring who loved your father correctly. You told them I couldn't handle it. You couldn't. I wasn't there. Exactly. I reached for the mug. Nolan grabbed it first. Give it to me. It's a cup. It was my father's. He was my family too. Then stop using him to win my house? Nolan swung his arm toward the sink. The mug struck the stainless steel and broke with a crack like a board splitting. The handle snapped off. A brown shard spun once near the drain. Neither of us moved. Nolan stared into the sink. I didn't mean, yes, you did. No, you just didn't mean for it to break. He turned toward me. If you fight me on this, it won't just be lawyers. Your mother, Paige, Theo, they'll tell the court what they've seen. Let them. They will choose the person who stayed over the person who left. Then let them say it under oath. You have no idea how you sound. I know exactly how I sound. My hands were shaking, so I picked up my keys. I have put people on aircraft in pieces and kept my hands steady, I said. I know what I'm capable of. I'm capable of leaving this room before I become someone I don't respect. Mara, I'll come back when Theo is here. I walked out. Behind me, Nolan's phone remained face down beside the fruit bowl, listening to the whole thing. I made it 3 blocks before pulling into a pharmacy parking lot. My hands had stopped shaking. My jaw had not. I parked beside a cart return and stared at a sign advertising 2-for-1 vitamins. An elderly man pushed a cart past my truck, glanced at me, then looked away with the polite speed people use when they suspect a stranger is crying. I wasn't. I was furious that Nolan had broken the mug. I was more furious that part of me was already arranging the scene for his defense. He hadn't thrown it at me. He hadn't raised his voice. He had been upset. The mug had slipped against the sink because I reached for it, except it hadn't slipped. He swung his arm. My phone rang. Theo. Where are you? He asked. Pharmacy. I'm at the house. Nolan's car is here. Stay outside. I'm already inside. I shut my eyes. What's happening? Nothing. He's upstairs. There's coffee all over the sink and your dad's mug is broken. Don't touch it. I wasn't going to. Is Nolan saying anything? He said you left. I did. He said you got overwhelmed. Of course he did. Theo, don't argue with him. I'm not. Don't ask what happened. I already did. What did he say? That you two disagreed about the house and the mug got knocked into the sink. By who? He didn't say. I started the truck. Wait in the garage. I'll be there in 5 minutes. I thought you told me to stay outside. I changed the instruction. You know, this is why the diagrams won't work. By the time I returned, Nolan had loaded 2 plastic bins into his car. Theo stood near the garage with his hands in his pockets. Nolan closed the trunk. I'm leaving, he said. Good. Theo shifted his weight. Nolan looked at him. Can you give us a minute? No, I said. I wasn't asking you. You're on my property. Our property. The garage is my workspace, Theo said. I'm staying here. It was the first time he had chosen a position rather than the hallway between us. Nolan noticed. All right, he said softly. He looked back at me. I'm sorry about the mug. You threw it. I set it down. Into the sink. You grabbed for it. After I told you to put it down. Theo stared at the driveway. Nolan's voice became gentler. This is exactly why we shouldn't be alone right now. You came here knowing Theo wasn't back. He was supposed to be. You could have waited in your car. So could you. He was right about that. It made everything else more difficult. Nolan opened his driver's door. I'll have Christopher contact Denise about future arrangements. Do that. He paused. You said things too, Mara. What things? You know. No. Tell me. His gaze moved briefly toward Theo. Then he got into the car and drove away. The kitchen smelled like coffee and hot metal. My father's mug lay in 4 main pieces in the sink, with smaller brown fragments gathered near the drain. The handle had broken cleanly at both ends. A dark crack ran through the base. Theo stood behind me. I can try to fix it. Not now. I've got an epoxy that would hold. I said not now. Okay. I turned. He lifted both hands. Regular, okay. I took pictures before touching anything. The sink, the coffee, each fragment. Nolan's wet handprint on the counter was already drying and looked too much like something from a crime scene, which it wasn't. I wrapped the pieces in a dish towel and put them in a small cardboard box. Theo wrote Dad's mug on the lid because my hands were occupied. He placed the box on the workbench beneath the pegboard. You want me to lock it up? He asked. It isn't evidence. You took 12 pictures. That doesn't make it evidence. It makes it the best documented mug in Bellwether. I sat on the stool. Theo leaned against the bench. What did he mean when he said you said things? I told him I knew what I was capable of. Theo's eyes narrowed. Context? I said I'd put people on aircraft in pieces and kept my hands steady. I said I was capable of leaving before I became somebody I didn't respect. That's a lot of context. He'll remove most of it. What else? I quoted what he tells people. That I don't sleep, check doors twice, hear things. Do you hear things? Sometimes a branch is a branch after I've already reacted to it. That wasn't what I asked. No, I do not hallucinate. I never hallucinated. After I came back from Germany, normal sounds sometimes registered as threats before I identified them. Theo nodded. You could have just said that. I just did. To me. Eventually. I looked at the box. Nolan said the family will choose him because he stayed. Theo rubbed his mouth. He's wrong. Is he? He's wrong to say it like that. That isn't the same answer. No. Theo glanced toward the house. It isn't. I called Denise from the garage. She listened without interrupting while I described the visit, the conversation, my leaving, and the broken mug. Did he threaten you? She asked. No. Did you threaten him? No. Those words about what you're capable of will be characterized as a threat. I finished the sentence. People often stop listening at the useful part. I left. That helps. He threw the mug. Did Theo see it? No. Camera? Exterior? Photographs? Yes. Email them to me. Write a factual account while the sequence is fresh. Do not contact Nolan. He apologized. For throwing it? For the mug. That distinction will matter. Nolan's email arrived before I finished my written account. Mara, I regret that Bill's mug was broken during our emotional discussion. I should not have tried to use it after you asked me not to. I also regret that we were alone when the conversation became heated. I will not enter the residence again unless a mutually agreed third party is present. I hope you can respect the same boundary. No mention of his hand, no mention of the sink. I forwarded it to Denise. His apology helps us, she wrote. It also helps him, I said to the empty garage. 2 days later, Christopher Bell filed a notice that Nolan intended to introduce an audio recording from the kitchen. Denise called me as soon as she received it. "Did you know he recorded you?" "No. Virginia permits a participant to record a conversation without telling the other person. I didn't ask if it was legal." "No, it was not ethical advice. Have you heard it?" "Christopher hasn't provided the file yet. He says they may use only a short portion for rebuttal." "Rebuttal to what?" "Your denial that your behavior has escalated. He came there to record me." "That is an inference." He put his phone face down beside the fruit bowl. "Did you see him start the recording?" "No." "Then it remains an inference." I stood at my office window. Below me, an HVAC contractor was unloading filters from a van. He broke the mug while it was recording. If the recording captured that, context may benefit us if they play all of it. We'll ask for the full file. They won't give it to you? They should. Should. Temporary hearings move quickly. Christopher will likely hand it over before court. If he doesn't, I'll object. I pressed my forehead against the glass. "What did you say that concerns you most?" Denise asked. I repeated the lines as closely as I could. She was silent. "Well?" The words sound worse without context. That was his plan. Again, inference. "You're very loyal to nouns. They hold up better than outrage." The hearing was set for the following Thursday. Nolan listed my mother, Paige, and Theo as potential witnesses. Denise listed Theo and my supervisor, Fran Dorsey, who agreed to confirm that I had never behaved violently, erratically, or unsafely at work. I hated involving Fran. She listened to my explanation, adjusted the reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck, and said, "Your personal life has already caused you to enter a generator serial number in the vendor field. I assumed murder or divorce." "Divorce." "Good. Murder has more paperwork." My mother signed a short statement for Nolan. I learned about it from Paige. "She didn't say you were dangerous," Paige told me over the phone. "She said you've had trouble sleeping and can become intense when you feel excluded. Did you sign one?" "No." "Why?" "Christopher's draft said I had witnessed unpredictable behavior. Have you?" "I've witnessed you change restaurant tables because a man behind you kept bumping your chair. That was 6 years ago." "I know." "Then why didn't you sign? Because changing tables isn't unpredictable." I sat on the edge of my bed. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. I'm still going to court. For Nolan? For myself." "What does that mean?" "It means both of you keep describing my role before I get there." On the morning of the hearing, I wore a navy suit I had bought for my retirement ceremony and low black shoes Denise approved because they did not suggest combat readiness. Theo drove separately. Paige brought my mother. When I entered the courtroom, Evelyn was sitting behind Nolan. Paige sat at the far end of the same row, leaving 2 empty seats between them. Nolan wore the charcoal suit from the box I had packed, the one from my father's funeral. He looked at me once, then lowered his eyes. Christopher Bell placed his phone on the counsel table. Denise leaned close. "He delivered the audio file 10 minutes ago," she whispered. 23 minutes, but he marked a 47-second excerpt. "Have you listened?" "Not yet." Across the aisle, Nolan folded his hands. The clerk called our names. I stood while the judge entered, knowing Nolan had brought 23 minutes of truth into the room and planned to let everyone hear less than one. The judge was a woman in her 60s named Harriet Weller. She wore half-moon glasses low on her nose and read both attorneys' names from the file even though they had just introduced themselves. That made me like her. People who verified information before acting had my support. Christopher began by calling Nolan. Nolan crossed the courtroom, took the oath, and sat with his shoulders slightly rounded. He looked like a man apologizing for needing help. Christopher asked about our marriage, my deployments, and the months after Germany. "My wife's service changed her," Nolan said. "I don't blame her. I want that understood." The word wife entered the room and pushed X aside. He described the wrench beneath the bed, the night I caught his wrist, the checking, the poor sleep, the way unexpected sounds could make me turn too fast. Every fact was true. He arranged them without dates until 8 years sounded like last Tuesday. Why did you leave the residence? Christopher asked. I didn't want an argument to become something worse. What made you think it might? Mara had become fixated on what I supposedly told her family. She questioned everyone. She said our marriage didn't work. I thought space was safest. Did you feel free to remain? Nolan looked at me, then away. No. Denise's pen stopped moving. Christopher asked about the day the mug broke. I went to collect personal belongings, Nolan said. Mara became angry about the house. She referenced her military experience and said I would find out what she was capable of. Did that frighten you? Yes. What happened to the mug? We both reached for it. It struck the sink. I felt Theo move behind me. Christopher finished with the apartment near my office, presenting it as evidence that Nolan wanted a practical solution, not punishment. Then Denise stood. Mr. Vance, after the incident involving your wrist, did you continue living with Mara? Yes, for approximately 8 years? Yes. Did you ever call the police about her? No. Seek a protective order? No. Tell her therapist you feared for your safety? No. I was trying to support her. Did Mara attend treatment? Yes. Did the wrist incident ever happen again? No. Did she ever strike you? No. Throw an object at you? No. Prevent you from leaving a room? No. Christopher objected to the speed of the questions. Judge Weller told Denise to slow down but allowed them. Denise picked up a printed text. You told Mara you were going to stay with her mother, correct? Yes. Did she order you to do that? She made it clear she didn't want me in the house. My question was whether she ordered you to leave. No. Did she actually tell you not to stay with Evelyn? Nolan paused. Yes. After you left, did you return to the house alone? Yes. Enter with your key? Yes. Remain for 43 minutes? I don't know the exact time. Did Mara interfere with that visit? She avoided me. So, no? No. Denise walked back to our table. Christopher called my mother. Evelyn moved slowly to the witness chair. She looked smaller from the side. Her posture curved in a way I had not noticed at home. Christopher asked whether she had observed changes in me. Yes. What kind? She was quieter after deployments, sometimes jumpy. She didn't like people walking up behind her. Have you seen her become intense during family disagreements? My mother looked at me. Yes. Did Nolan frequently help manage those situations? He helped everyone get through them. Did you offer him a place to stay because you believed space was needed? Yes. Were you concerned about what might happen if he stayed in the residence? Evelyn gripped the arms of the chair. I was concerned they would say things they couldn't take back. Were you concerned for his safety? Christopher asked it gently. My mother looked at Nolan. No, she said. His head lifted. Christopher tried again. Did you understand that he felt unsafe? He said he thought leaving was best. That wasn't my question. Judge Weller glanced over her glasses. She answered the question she heard. Move on. Christopher sat down soon after. Denise asked my mother only 3 things. Have you ever seen Mara physically threaten Nolan? No. Have you ever been physically afraid of your daughter? No. Did Nolan tell you Mara chose not to attend the memorial dinner? My mother's face tightened. Yes. Did you verify that with Mara? No. Denise sat. Paige was not called. Neither was Theo. Judge Weller had read the written statements and asked the attorneys to focus on current risk. Then it was my turn. Denise did not ask whether service had changed me. She asked what happened. I told the truth in chronological order. I did not deny the wrench, the wrist, or the bad months. I described treatment without giving a speech about strength. I said Nolan chose to leave and later returned without me present. I explained why I refused to meet him alone after hiring Denise. What did you mean when you said you knew what you were capable of? She asked. I meant I was capable of leaving the room. Did you threaten to harm Nolan? No. Did you throw the mug? No. Who did? Nolan. Christopher stood for cross-examination with one hand buttoning his jacket. You continue to have sleep problems, don't you? Occasionally. You checked the doors twice the night before this motion was filed. I looked at Nolan. Christopher repeated the question. Yes. You told Mr. Vance you had put people on aircraft in pieces. Yes. You told him, keep pushing me, and you'll find out what I'm capable of. That was part of a longer sentence. But you said those words. Yes. You agree they could sound threatening, without the rest of the sentence. Your Honor, I'd like to play a brief recording. Christopher placed his phone beside a small speaker. Denise objected that the audio had been delivered only minutes before the hearing. Christopher said it was rebuttal evidence from a participant to the conversation. Judge Weller allowed the excerpt provisionally and said she would address completeness if necessary. My voice filled the courtroom. I don't sleep. I check every door twice. Sometimes I hear things that aren't there. Then the mug broke against the sink. Keep pushing me and you'll find out what I'm capable of. Christopher stopped the recording. The silence was different from ordinary silence. It had a verdict hiding inside it. Behind Nolan, my mother looked at the floor. Denise put 2 fingers on my wrist. That isn't the whole conversation, I whispered. I know. No. He cut the sentences. Her head turned. Are you certain? I remember the fruit bowl. I remember where his phone was. The first part is me quoting what he tells people. The second sentence continues. Denise rose. Your Honor, the complete file is 23 minutes. The excerpt removes language directly before and after both statements. Christopher said the rest involved irrelevant marital disputes. It involves the house at issue, Denise said. It also establishes who broke the mug and whether the statement was a threat. Judge Weller looked at me. I stood before Denise could stop me. Your Honor, I want the whole recording played. Christopher objected to me speaking directly. Judge Weller told me to sit, but she was already reaching for the exhibit list. Mr. Bell, she said, you introduced a portion to establish state of mind. I'm not going to assess that state of mind from sentences cut in half. Play the complete recording. Nolan looked afraid. The full recording began with the sound of the back door opening. For 23 minutes, none of us could escape the kitchen. We heard Nolan say the apartment near my office would be practical. We heard me refuse. We heard him say he should move back and maintain the house. We heard me accuse him of wanting proof that he stayed. His voice sounded different through the speaker, smaller, sharper. I want one thing that doesn't disappear when you decide to come home. Then came the argument about the deployments and Theo's planer. My complete sentence played, you tell them, I don't sleep. I check every door twice. Sometimes I hear things that aren't there. That was 8 years ago, Nolan. I got help. You keep me trapped in the worst months of my life because everyone admires you for surviving them. No one moved. The recording caught him saying he had survived those months. It caught me answering, so did I. When the mug broke, the sound was louder in the courtroom. Nolan's voice came immediately after it. I didn't mean, yes, you did, no. You just didn't mean for it to break. Then his warning. Your mother, Paige, Theo, they'll tell the court what they've seen. Let them. They will choose the person who stayed over the person who left. My mother made a sound behind him, barely more than a breath, but I heard it. Finally, my whole statement played. I have put people on aircraft in pieces and kept my hands steady. I know what I'm capable of. I'm capable of leaving this room before I become someone I don't respect. Keys moved. A door closed. The recording continued for another minute. Nolan breathed near the phone. A cabinet opened. Water ran in the sink. Then, very quietly, he said, Damn it. The file ended. Judge Weller removed her glasses. Christopher began, Your Honor, the language remains concerning. No, she said. The edited language was concerning. She did not lecture Nolan. She did not praise me. She asked 3 factual questions about current housing, access, and whether either of us intended to return without a third party present. Then she denied his request for exclusive possession. I could remain in the house. Nolan retained legal access, but property collections would occur at agreed times with another adult present. Both of us were ordered not to destroy, remove, or dispose of disputed property. Communication about the house would remain in writing. The divorce was still pending. The house still belonged to both of us. Nothing about that day decided who would own it later. Judge Weller gathered her papers. "This court is not finding that Ms. Vance has no scars from service," she said. "It is finding no credible evidence that those scars create a current safety risk to Mr. Vance." The gavel made less noise than my father's mug. Outside the courtroom, Evelyn stopped near the elevators with Paige beside her. Nolan came through the doors behind Christopher. He looked at me. "You knew what was on that recording," he said. "So did you." The elevator opened. For once, nobody moved to stand beside him. Paige moved first. She stepped into the elevator and pressed the button to hold the doors. My mother followed without looking at Nolan. Christopher touched Nolan's elbow. "We'll take the next one." Nolan pulled away from him. "I wasn't trying to trap her," he said. The hallway was too public for the sentence. A clerk carrying files slowed down, then continued. "You recorded her without telling her," Paige said. "You cut the recording. I used the part Christopher said was relevant." Christopher's face stayed professional, but something in his posture withdrew from the conversation. "You sent him the whole file," I said. "Yes." "Did you tell him which section to use?" Nolan looked at his attorney. Christopher spoke carefully. My client identified the statements that caused his concern. "So yes," Paige said. "It sounded different in the moment," Nolan told her. "You weren't there. We all just were." My mother pressed the elevator button again, even though the doors were already being held. "Nolan," she said, "you told me she threatened you. I said I felt threatened. You let me believe she broke Bill's mug. I said it broke during the argument. That's not an answer." Nolan looked at me then, as if this were my fault too. "You taught them that," I said. "What, to ask for the rest of the sentence?" The elevator began beeping. Paige released the button. The doors closed between us, leaving Nolan, Christopher, Denise, and me in the hallway. For one irrational second, I wanted to stay with him. 19 years will do that. Your body learns a person before your judgment finishes meeting them. Nolan looked abandoned, and some old part of me began inventorying what he might need. A ride, water, somebody to tell him the day wasn't his whole life. I picked up my bag instead. Denise walked beside me toward the stairs. "You won the motion," she said. "I know. That is not the same as winning the divorce." "I know. You're saying it like you don't. What happens now?" We returned to the boring work. Financial disclosures, valuation, negotiation, the house. If he lied to get it, does that matter? To whether he deserved temporary possession, yes. To his marital equity, probably not. So he gets half. He gets whatever share the law and the facts support. He tried to use my medical history to remove me, and the court rejected it. Property division is not a character award. I stopped at the stairwell door. That's convenient. Fairness often disappoints people who have recently been right. Do you practice these sentences? I bill by the good one. She opened the door. Behind us, Christopher's voice dropped low. Nolan answered, but I couldn't make out the words. Denise glanced back. Do not contact him today. I won't. Do not send your mother the recording. I won't. Do not post anything. I don't post anything. You have a Facebook account. It has one photograph from 2014. Keep it that way. Outside, Theo waited by the courthouse steps. He had worn a sport coat over a t-shirt and looked like someone attending a job interview at a lumber yard. Did you drive? He asked. Yes. Good. Paige took Evelyn. I saw. You want coffee? No. Food? No. Want me to ask less irritating questions? Yes. He nodded. We stood in the sun while people moved around us. The whole recording, he said eventually. That was something. It was 23 minutes. You know what I mean. I do. He knew it had the part about the mug. Yes, and the family choosing him. Yes. Theo scratched his jaw. Why bring it? Because he believed the first 47 seconds were more convincing than the rest was damaging. That's bleak. He was almost right. Theo looked at me sharply. The judge played all of it. Because I asked. Because the whole thing existed. If he'd just written an affidavit, he did. Yeah. He shoved his hands into his pockets. I'm sorry I made you keep proving it. You didn't. I kept saying maybe he really felt worried. He did feel worried. Theo frowned. His feelings weren't fake, I said. He was worried I would stop letting him define the problem. That's not safety. No. A group of attorneys came down the steps behind us, laughing about parking validation. Theo held out his keys. I'm getting coffee whether you want it or not. I have work. Fran already knows you're at court. She isn't my mother. No, she's scarier. He left before I could object. I drove home alone. The house looked unchanged. No flags, no crowd, no proof on the lawn that I had been believed. Inside, the kitchen still had a small brown chip from the mug beneath the edge of the dishwasher. I found it while sweeping. I put it in my pocket and carried it to the garage. The box sat beneath the pegboard where Theo had left it. I added the missing piece and closed the lid. My mother arrived after dark. She knocked. I watched her through the front window for several seconds before opening the door. I need to talk to you, she said. I'm tired. So am I. That doesn't make this a good time. No, it makes it the time I have. She wore the same clothes from court. Her lipstick had faded, leaving only a darker outline around her mouth. I stepped onto the porch and closed the door behind me. She looked at the closed door. You're not inviting me in? No. All right. We stood beneath the porch light Nolan had claimed to repair. My mother clasped her purse against her stomach. I'm sorry, she said. For what? Her eyes widened. For everything. That's too large to be useful. Mara. What did you do? I believed him. About what? That you were becoming worse. Why? Because he was worried. He was performing worry. I know that now. Do you? She looked toward the dark garage. I heard the recording. You heard it because a judge required the whole thing. I asked you what he told you before any of this, and you chose his answer over mine. I thought he knew you better. He knew how to explain me better. That isn't what I meant. It's what happened. My mother's grip tightened on her purse. I trusted him because he was here. The porch light buzzed. There it was again, not deployed, not serving. Gone. You were angry at me, I said. I was lonely. That isn't the same thing. It became the same thing. I waited. She looked down at the porch boards. Your father got sick, she said. You sent binders. One binder. A very large binder. It had medication lists, appointment notes, and insurance contacts. I know what was in it. I used it. What did you want instead? I couldn't leave. I know. But you let Nolan turn that into me choosing not to come. I didn't correct him. Why? Because I needed one person to be angry with. The honesty did not feel good. It felt like pressure against a bruise. Dad? I asked. He was dying. God? I tried. He didn't answer. So me. You were far enough away. We stood in silence. A moth battered itself against the porch light, dropped, then rose again. My mother wiped under one eye. I should have called you about the dinner. Yes. I should have asked you what you wanted. Yes. I let him tell me you were fragile because it made my anger sound like concern. That was specific enough to hurt. I nodded. She took a step toward me. I stepped back. Her face folded. I said, I'm sorry, I heard you. What else do you want? Time. How much? I don't know. Are you going to keep me outside forever? The question carried more than the porch. I'm not deciding forever tonight. She looked at the door again. I brought no soup this time. That's progress. She laughed once, wet and unwilling. Then she left. The next morning, Denise forwarded Nolan's first settlement proposal. He offered 2 choices. We could sell the house and divide the proceeds after paying the mortgage and costs, or I could refinance it within 90 days and pay him his proposed share of the equity. The number beside his name was large enough that I checked the decimal point. I called Denise. He doesn't even want the house now. He wants value. He filed to remove me from it. He may still prefer possession. After yesterday, that path became less attractive, so we tried fear first and cash second. Most property disputes eventually become arithmetic. I can't pay this. His figure is a proposal, not a valuation, but it won't be nothing. No. I walked through the house while she spoke. The dining table my father and I had refinished. The support post he refused to remove. The maple brushing the gutter. The basement door frame with old pencil marks beneath 3 layers of varnish. The garage lights Nolan installed for Theo. The house did not belong to one clean story. What if I refuse to sell? I asked. Then we litigate, spend money, and may still end with a sale. What if I buy him out? Can you qualify to refinance? I don't know. Find out before falling in love with the idea. I'm already in love with the idea. That is why I said it. The appraisal came 12 days later. A man named Mr. Henley walked through each room, taking measurements with a laser and saying functional about things I considered beautiful. He called the garage an accessory structure and my father's workbench personal property. When he left, I stood beneath the maple and waited for anger to become a plan. The valuation came in higher than Nolan's estimate. That should have helped. It meant his lawful share would cost me more. I spread my finances across the kitchen table that night. Salary, retirement, mortgage balance, vehicle values, savings, debt. No secret account appeared because I stared hard enough. The numbers did not work. Theo came in through the back door carrying a paper cup and saw the pages. "You selling the house?" he asked. "No." "You sure?" I looked toward the garage, then at the room around me. "No," I said. "But I'm going to find out what keeping it costs." Theo looked over the numbers without touching them. "How short?" "I don't know yet. That seems important. The lender needs updated statements, the appraisal, the proposed settlement amount, and proof of income. You have income. I have one income. You have skills. Banks don't accept skills. They do when skills become invoices." I looked up. Theo pulled out the chair across from me. "Benny's doing 3 old houses on the east side," he said. "Not flipping them, repairing them for people who already own them. He needs someone who can manage crews, catch bad work, and explain why a wall can't be removed just because it ruins the vibe. I have a full-time job, weekends, some evenings, working for Benny. He overcharges landlords. He pays workers on time. He raised your rent. He said my dust was affecting his vintage motorcycle collection. It was 3 motorcycles under plastic tarps. That's what made them vintage." I rubbed my forehead. Theo leaned over the table. "I'm not offering charity. Benny called me because one house needs built-ins repaired. I told him you know structures and scheduling. You discussed me with someone?" He winced theatrically. "I said you're competent. I apologize for the invasion. I can't make up that gap sanding cabinets." "No. But you might cover closing costs, fees, and whatever the lender says you need in reserve. I don't know what the lender will say. Then ask." I gathered the pages into a stack. "You make it sound simple." "No. Simple is selling. This sounds miserable." He was right. The lender said I could probably refinance, which was a phrase designed to make Hope feel irresponsible. The monthly payment would be high but manageable if I stopped pretending takeout coffee was a human right. The larger problem was cash at closing and the amount Nolan wanted beyond what could be balanced against other marital assets. Denise sent Christopher a counter-proposal based on the appraisal, the mortgage balance, and credits neither side found emotionally satisfying. Christopher rejected it. We sent another. He rejected that one more, politely. Meanwhile, I spent Saturdays in houses with floors that leaned, pipes that had been repaired with garden hose, and owners who had strong opinions about load-bearing walls after watching online videos. Benny was a short man with silver hair, immaculate boots, and a permanent suspicion that everyone else was using the wrong screw. On my first day, he handed me a clipboard. The The plumber says the framing is in his way. The framing is holding up the bathroom. I told him that. What did he say? He's a plumber. We found the plumber in the crawl space, where he had already drilled one hole through a joist and was considering another. I stopped him. He looked at Benny. Who's she? The reason your second hole won't happen. The work made sense to me. Problems still hid, but they hid in physical places. Rot beneath a window, a vent buried behind drywall, a porch settling because someone had stacked brick on dirt and called it a footing. Nobody asked whether identifying the crack was an emotional overreaction. I worked my regular job Monday through Friday in Benny's houses on weekends. Theo took the finish work and made twice as much as I did while appearing to move half as fast. He claimed that was craftsmanship. I sold the touring motorcycle Nolan and I had not ridden in 5 years. My camera equipment, 2 cabinets I had restored after retirement, and a set of golf clubs purchased during a 6-month period when I believed civilian life required hobbies with special pants. Paige bought the camera. You know this is worth more than you're asking, she said. Then don't buy it. I'm not trying to bargain. You're trying to help. I'm paying the listed price. You're my sister. That seems like a design flaw, but here we are. We stood in my driveway beside her car. She opened the camera case and checked the lenses. I used to borrow this, she said. You took it without asking. I returned it. You left it in Mom's linen closet. I was young. You were 28. Paige closed the case. I'm sorry, she said. For the camera. For telling people you were difficult instead of telling you I was angry. I leaned against the truck. She continued before I could answer. I repeated Nolan's stories because they made my resentment sound reasonable. If you were unstable, then I wasn't jealous or bitter. I was concerned. That word did a lot of work in this family. I know. Did you believe him? Sometimes. Mostly, I believed the parts that matched what I already felt. That's worse. Yes. Her answer surprised me. Paige put the camera in her trunk. I'm not asking you to forgive me today. Good. I am asking if you'll call Mom. No. She nodded. Also good. You're not going to argue? I'm trying something new. It's unsettling. She closed the trunk. Before she left, she said, Nolan moved out of Mom's. Where? Apartment near his office. The one with efficient balconies? No, older building. Big windows. Is he okay? Paige studied me. I don't know. I stopped asking for him. That was not cruelty. It was a boundary arriving late. Our settlement conference took place in Denise's office because she refused to pay for a neutral conference room with chairs designed by an orthopedic surgeon seeking business. Nolan sat beside Christopher at one end of the table. I sat beside Denise at the other. He had lost weight. His wedding ring was back on his hand. Mine remained in a small dish on my dresser. For 2 hours, we discussed property like strangers dividing supplies after a storm, vehicles, retirement accounts, furniture, the mortgage, Theo's use of the garage. Christopher proposed selling the house again. No, I said. Nolan looked at me. You can't afford it. I'm working on that. You're working 7 days a week. How do you know? Theo mentioned Benny. I turned to Denise. She gave me a look that said murder did in fact have more paperwork. I don't want you destroying yourself to prove a point, Nolan said. That stopped being your decision. I'm still allowed to care. Are you? His face tightened. Denise placed one finger on the spreadsheet. The parties are within $18,000. We're here to settle property, not define post-marital caring. Christopher adjusted his cuff. Nolan stared at the figures. I maintained that house for years, he said. So did I. I kept the family in it. It wasn't a fort. It felt like one sometimes. The attorneys became very still. Nolan looked at his hands. Every time you came home, everybody rearranged themselves, he said. Your father canceled things. Evelyn stocked the food you liked. Paige drove in. Then you left and they were wrecked, and I stayed to clean it up. I didn't ask them to perform my return. You liked it. Maybe I did. He looked at me. I had spent weeks wanting him to admit what he had done. I had not considered what it would cost to admit what I had taken. I liked being missed, I said. I didn't know they resented me for leaving again. They didn't want you to feel guilty, so you carried the guilt for them. I carried everything. No, you collected everything. Christopher shifted, but Nolan kept speaking. When you filed, I thought, after all those years, you could still decide the marriage was over, and I'd become the man who waited in a house you kept. So you tried to remove me first. I wanted the court to see what I lived with. You wanted the court to see 47 seconds. I felt threatened in that kitchen. You planned to feel threatened. You put the phone down before we argued. I planned to protect myself. From what? From you making me the reason everything failed. I sat back. There it was, not fear of my hands, fear of my version. Were you? I asked. The reason? Yes. No. The answer came quietly. Neither were you, he said. For the first time, I believed he meant it. It did not excuse the affidavit, the recording, or the years he had spent preserving my worst season, because it made his own choices look noble. It did make the marriage feel less like a crime scene and more like a structure we had both kept repairing around the wrong damage. Denise cleared her throat. $18,000. Nolan took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. If Mara assumes the remaining credit card balance and I keep my retirement account without an equalization claim, we can reduce the cash difference. Christopher leaned toward him. We should discuss that privately. We've discussed it. Denise ran the numbers. The gap became something I could almost reach. Nolan looked across the table. I want Dad's mug. My whole body stiffened. He was not your dad. He told me to call him that. You broke it. I know. Why do you want it? I don't want to keep it. I want to fix it. You don't fix things by making them look unbroken. His eyes dropped. I know that too. No. Denise touched my sleeve. I looked at her. This is not a property issue worth litigating, she said. It isn't property. I know. I turned back to Nolan. The mug stays with me. He nodded. We reached a tentative agreement late that afternoon. I had 120 days to complete the refinance and pay Nolan his share. If I failed, the house would be listed for sale. Nothing was signed yet. On the way home, the lender called to say the underwriting file had moved forward, pending proof of reserves and final settlement figures. Probably had become possible. When I pulled into the driveway, my mother was standing near the garage with Theo. He held the small cardboard box. I got out of the truck. What's happening? Evelyn looked at the label on the lid. I asked Theo if I could have the mug. He should have asked me. I told her that, Theo said, several times. She waited. My mother held out both hands. I want to try to repair it. Nolan wanted the same thing. I'm not Nolan. No. You handed him the mug without touching it. She absorbed that. Yes, she said. I looked at the box. You may not be able to fix it. I know. It won't look like it did. I know. You have to bring it back. I will. I took the box from Theo and placed it in my mother's hands. She held it against her chest, not like evidence, like something broken she had finally agreed belonged to all of us. My mother drove away with the box in the passenger seat, secured beneath the seatbelt. Theo watched her taillights disappear. You trust her with it? No. Then why'd you give it to her? Because she asked me. That's all it takes now? No. That's why it mattered. He considered this, then nodded as if I had explained a difficult joint. The next house Benny assigned me had a porch that looked solid until I removed the first board. Underneath, 3 joists had rotted to the texture of chocolate cake. Benny stood in the yard with both hands on his hips. Can we sister new lumber beside them? He asked. Not that one. Why? I pushed a screwdriver through it. He stared at the hole. Rude, he said. The repair added 2 weekends to the job. I worked until my hands cramped, slept hard enough to miss the maple branch against the gutter, and deposited every payment into the account the lender wanted to see. I stopped buying coffee on the road. I packed sandwiches. Theo began adding extra food to his lunch and pretending he had forgotten what hunger felt like by noon. One Saturday, I found a second sandwich sitting on my clipboard. I brought food, I said. That one's mine. You already ate yours. I contain multitudes. It has mustard. You hate mustard. I'm growing. I ate the sandwich. Learning to accept help without auditing the motive was more difficult than replacing rotten framing. There was no level to tell me when I had it straight. The lender asked for one document, then another, then an explanation of why my income had increased. I supplied invoices, pay statements, tax returns, account histories, and a letter from Benny confirming I was not laundering money through porch repair. That isn't what the letter says, Benny told me. It implies it. It says independent contractor. Exactly. Denise negotiated the final settlement language while Christopher argued over furniture neither Nolan nor I had wanted before it acquired a column on a spreadsheet. Nolan took the Asheville print, the bedroom set, the dining room sideboard that had never fit correctly, and the coffee grinder. I kept my father's tools, the garage equipment that was mine, the kitchen table, and the house if the refinance closed on time. Paige sent one message asking whether I needed anything. I wrote, "Not right now." She responded, "Understood." No second question, no appeal through my mother, no Nolan calling afterward to explain what she really meant. The silence felt unfamiliar, but it did not feel empty. Nolan came for his remaining property on a Sunday afternoon with Theo present. He had hired a small moving truck and brought 3 men who treated our marriage as a series of heavy objects. I labeled nothing that time. Nolan walked through each room carrying a clipboard. His wedding ring was gone. The pale band beneath it remained. In the upstairs bedroom, he opened the bathroom drawer and found the charger he had left months earlier. I wondered where this was. "You took the toothbrush. I bought a new one. I assumed you hadn't stopped brushing." He smiled before he could prevent it. "So that's where we are now," he said. Dental humor. "We've been worse places." "Yes." He unplugged the charger and wrapped the cord around it. The wedding ring I had stopped wearing was no longer in the dish on my dresser. I had sold it with a pair of earrings, an old bracelet, and a watch Nolan gave me after my second deployment. The jeweler had looked at the ring through a loop and named a price lower than what Nolan paid 19 years earlier. "Sentiment doesn't hold resale value," he had said. "Useful." He thought I was joking. Nolan noticed the empty dish. "You sold it?" "Yes." "For the house? For the closing costs?" His face changed. "You could have asked me to reduce the amount." "I did. Through Denise. I mean directly. Directly didn't work well for us." He set the charger in a box. "No," he said. "It didn't." Downstairs, one mover pointed at the support post. "Does this stay?" "Yes," Nolan and I said together. The mover backed away from it. Nolan ran his palm along the painted wood. "I always hated this thing. My father said the second floor would fall into the refrigerator. He also used a level that was older than electricity. He was right about the post. Probably." The truck filled slowly. Nolan took his books, records, the framed photographs that belonged to his side of the family, and a lamp we had argued over in Asheville. He left the old running shoes. "You forgot these," I said. "I'm not taking them. They're yours. They hurt my knees. They've hurt your knees since 2018. I know. I've been looking for a legal opportunity to abandon them. I put them in the trash." When the movers carried out the bedroom dresser, Nolan and I stood alone in the kitchen. His phone remained in his pocket. He looked at the empty hook above the sink. Did Evelyn take the mug? Yes. To fix it? To try. He nodded. I shouldn't have touched it. No. I mean, before it broke. I knew why you wanted it left alone. Yes. I wanted you to react. The refrigerator hummed behind us. I waited. He looked toward the garage door, where Theo's shadow moved across the frosted glass. I started recording before you came back inside, Nolan said. I told myself it was because Christopher said to document interactions. Did Christopher tell you to start an argument? No. Did he tell you to use Dad's mug? No. I didn't think so. I knew the whole recording made me sound bad. You knew it showed what happened. I thought once people heard your words, they wouldn't care about mine. That was the problem. He rubbed the pale band where his ring had been. I spent years thinking if people understood how hard it was for me, they'd understand why I did things. They did understand. They chose you. They believed the recording. Same result. No. Choosing me would have been believing me before a judge ordered you to play the whole thing. He looked down. Evelyn won't take my calls. She will eventually. You don't know that? No, I don't. Paige told me not to contact her about you. That's reasonable. Theo barely speaks to me. Theo is tired. So am I. The answer came out sharp, then collapsed. Nolan sat at the kitchen table. For a moment, he looked like the man who had brought frozen peas to bed after I hurt his wrist. The man who sat beside my father. The man who learned how I took tea and kept sparkling water in the refrigerator because he believed adulthood required bubbles. He had loved me. He had also needed my damage to explain the shape of his own life. Both things were true. Neither repaired the other. I am sorry, he said. For what? He looked up. For recording you, cutting it, telling your mother you couldn't handle the dinner, using Germany every time I wanted people to stop questioning me. I pulled out the chair across from him but did not sit. And the affidavit? I was afraid. Of me? Of losing everything and being nobody to your family. You were willing to make me dangerous so you could remain necessary. Yes. It was the first time he answered without changing the noun. I sat. I believe you're sorry, I said. His eyes filled. Is that enough? No, he nodded. The moving truck door rolled down outside. Nolan stood. At the back door, he looked toward the maple. You should cut that branch before winter. I know, it'll damage the gutter. I said I know. He smiled faintly. Then he left. The refinance was approved on day 116. Denise called while I was beneath a bathroom sink trying to determine why a shutoff valve had been installed backward. You have closing Friday at 10, she said. I sat on the floor. Is that final? It will be final when you sign approximately 4,000 pages and surrender a painful amount of money. The lender approved everything? Yes. The reserves? Yes. The income? Yes, Mara. The settlement figures? Christopher confirmed. What can still go wrong? A meteor. What size? Denise hung up. Closing took 48 minutes. There was no courtroom. No audience. Nolan signed separately earlier that morning. I sat across from a woman named Linda who placed adhesive flags beside every signature line and apologized for the quality of the office pen. The new mortgage payment made me briefly consider setting the house on fire, which would have complicated the insurance. I signed anyway. Nolan received his lawful share. The old loan was paid. His name came off the deed. Linda slid a set of photocopies toward me. Congratulations for the debt? For the house. I already have keys. Then you're ahead of most people. Outside, I sat in my truck and waited for triumph. It did not arrive. Relief did, but it was quiet. It sat beside grief without asking either of us to move. I called Theo. It closed, I said. He shouted loud enough that I held the phone away from my ear. Do I still have to pay rent? You have never paid rent correctly, so nothing changes. Everything changes. He went quiet. Yeah, he said. I guess it does. I changed the locks that afternoon, not because I feared Nolan, because the house was mine, and I wanted the first change to be something plain, useful, and impossible to misinterpret. I kept working with Benny after I no longer needed every invoice for underwriting. I liked the houses. I liked finding the point where damage stopped and good material began. At home, I repainted the bedroom, moved the dining table 6 inches toward the window, and left the support post exactly where it was. Theo cut the maple branch after making me admit that ladders were easier with 2 people. My mother did not call for several weeks. Neither did I. Then, one Sunday afternoon, someone knocked. Evelyn stood on the porch, holding my father's mug. She had repaired it badly. The handle tilted upward. 2 seams remained thick with yellowed adhesive. A thin line of gold paint wandered along the largest crack, stopping halfway when she had apparently reconsidered the artistic direction. I stared at it. "I watched a video," she said. "Clearly, the woman made it look easy. The woman probably cleaned the edges first. I cleaned them. You sanded the glaze." I panicked. Behind her, Paige stood near the porch steps holding a grocery bag. She did not move toward the door. My mother extended the mug. "It holds water. That isn't the only requirement." "I know." I took it carefully. The brown chip I had found beneath the dishwasher was in place near the base. She had kept every piece. "I'm sorry it took so long," she said. "Repairs do." "I was hoping you could show me how to do it properly. Some of these cracks will stay visible." "I understand." I looked at her. This time she did. I opened the door and let my mother enter. Paige stayed on the porch. She looked at me, then at the grocery bag in her hands. "I brought chicken," she said. "Rosemary, none." I almost invited her in. Almost was not punishment. It was simply where we were. "Wait there," I said. She nodded. No wounded expression. No phone call to our mother. No one else answering for her. I carried the mug to the garage. Evelyn followed. Theo was at the workbench fitting a drawer into the walnut sideboard. He moved his tools aside when he saw what we had brought. "Oh," he said. "That good?" my mother asked. "That's a mug. I know it's bad. I didn't say bad. You made a face. I have a face." I set the mug beneath the pegboard where the box had once sat. Then I pulled over the rolling stool, opened the drawer containing the fine abrasives, and placed a sheet in my mother's hand. "Light pressure," I told her. "You're not trying to erase the crack." "What am I trying to do?" "Make the edges safe." Her hand trembled when she touched the mug. I put my fingers over hers, not taking the work away, only steadying it. Behind us, Theo returned to his sideboard. Through the open garage door, I could see Paige waiting on the porch with the chicken, no longer pretending she had never been outside. My mother moved the abrasive along the first crooked seam. "Like this?" she asked. Slower. She tried again. This time, I let her.